Every franchise has that high point, that one game that rises above the rest, catching lightning in a bottle. Think about it. Tekken 3 was a crown jewel of its series, and arguably one of the best fighting games of all time. Metal Gear Solid 3 nailed every aspect so well that it's getting a full-blown remake for a new generation. Every franchise needs that one defining moment. For Mortal Kombat, that moment hadn't been since the 90s. After reaching cultural icon status in that decade, the series hit a rough patch. Its popularity dipped, and things were looking uncertain. But then came the sixth generation of consoles, PlayStation 2, Xbox, and GameCube. And with this, Mortal Kombat started finding its footing again. And in 2004, after years of waiting, Mortal Kombat finally caught lightning in a bottle once more. Welcome to episode 8 of the Mortal Kombat Takeover. Today, we're contacting Damashi and embarking on a lifelong quest with Mortal Kombat Deception.
Finish her! Finish him! Fatality!
If you're a returning viewer, welcome back. And if you're new to the channel, welcome aboard. I'm glad you're here. If you didn't know, I got a whole playlist covering the Mortal Kombat series all the way up to Deadly Alliance. So if you're enjoying this one, I highly recommend checking those out. They'll really help catch you up and tell you the full story. At the same time, I'm also diving into the Rockstar Games library in preparation for the release of Grand Theft Auto 6. I've already covered a bit of GTA, Max Payne, and Midnight Club, along with Bully and Manhunt along the way. If any of that sounds like your kind of vibe, make sure to hit that subscribe button and punch the notification bell so you never miss out on new content. With that said, let's dive into this. In case you're a new viewer and haven't seen my other Mortal Kombat retrospectives, don't worry, I'm going to catch you up to speed real quick. Back in the early 90s, after the massive success of Street Fighter II, a company called Bally Midway wanted to compete. Their idea? A fighting game inspired by Jean-Claude Van Damme. Around this time, a young artist named John Tobias, along with a few of his close friends, pitched their own fighting game to the company. Ed Boon, a programmer at Midway, liked the pitch, and when the Van Damme project fell through, the only option left was for Tobias and Boon's idea. And from that, the most controversial fighting game of its time was born. In 1992, Mortal Kombat dropped and sparked instant controversy. The violence was so intense that Congress stepped in, and the uproar led to the creation of the ESRB rating system. But instead of showing the game down, it only made it more popular. Mortal Kombat became a smash hit, and in 1993, the sequel went even bigger, becoming the best-selling arcade game of 1994. The brand exploded with tours, merchandise, and even a live-action movie. But just as things were peaking, the first cracks in the franchise began to show. A few of the original actors from the first game entered a legal dispute with Midway and were ultimately removed from the franchise. That's when several familiar faces were missing from Mortal Kombat 3. To win fans back, Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3 and Mortal Kombat Trilogy were released to patch up the backlash. But the cracks turned into holes when Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero launched. It sold decently well, but was met with harsh criticism. Fans were split. Some loved it and most hated it, and for the first time, Mortal Kombat's reputation was on shaky ground. And things only got worse. That same year, in the fall of '97, Mortal Kombat Annihilation hit theaters, and it was universally panned. Then came Mortal Kombat 4, but after the back-to-back stumbles of Mythologies and the movie, it couldn't live up to the hype. It lacked the punch of its predecessors, and the franchise was clearly losing steam. But nothing prepared fans for Mortal Kombat Special Forces in 2000. Released at the end of the PlayStation's life cycle, it marked the franchise's lowest point. This was the game that led to John Tobias, one of the original creators, leaving the company. The man who helped create Mortal Kombat was now gone, and with him, the series went cold. It wasn't until Mortal Kombat made its move to the 3D era that things started to turn around. Deadly Alliance dropped, and just like that, the franchise was a household name once again. Selling well and paying well, new fans and old fans flocked back to Mortal Kombat. And with that, we are fully caught up.
Feeding off the power of next-generation systems, Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance brings the franchise home and expands its mythology.
This is easily the biggest production of all the Mortal Kombat games. You could take, take the work of 3 of the previous games, put them together, and you have about what it took to make this game. We really wanted to make sure the martial arts was authentic in Deadly Alliance.
I'm really excited about the look of Deadly Alliance. It has a great fantasy look, but still realistic at the same time.
In this game, we can make things look a little more real with the clavicles and neck bones that we didn't used to have in Mortal Kombat 4.
Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance debuted in Los Angeles at E3 2002, complete with a live show by Adema, performing their original song, Immortal.
The future for Mortal Kombat? I guess we'll have to wait and see.
Over the last decade, Mortal Kombat has become a legend in the arena of fighting games that will be here for years to come.
Get over here!
With the success of Deadly Alliance, Mortal Kombat was back on the map. The franchise found new life, and fans were already asking the big question: when's the next one coming out? That answer started to take shape in May of 2003 when an issue of PlayStation Magazine featured an interview with series co-creator Ed Boon. In it, Boon confirmed the team was already hard at work on the next installment, what he called Mortal Kombat 6, and there was one word that kept coming up over and over again: online. We recently spent some time with Midway's Ed Boon, master of all things mortal and combative, and he confirmed that his team is already working on a follow-up to last year's impressive MK revival, Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, to be released sometime in 2004. Why so far away? Well, it seems that the tear everything apart and rebuild it from scratch approach the team used to make Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance work so well, Boon and crew are using the same technique this time. Thus, we can't tell you exactly what form this next Mortal Kombat will take. However, we can confirm that one word kept coming up over and over during our conversation: online. By the early 2000s, online multiplayer was taking over. Sports games, racers, shooters, and yes, even fighting games were moving beyond the couch and onto servers. Mortal Kombat was ready to join that wave. Fans knew 2 things coming out of that interview. First, the next Mortal Kombat was going to be multi-platform. Next, it was going to be online. But the real reveal came at E3 2004. At E3, Ed Boon sat down for a deeper dive into the new game, Mortal Kombat Deception. He walked fans through the brand new Conquest mode and the bizarre but awesome chess combat and teased other surprises. He explained that this sequel wasn't just about adding content, it was about refining what did and what didn't work in Deadly Alliance. That meant bringing back more fatalities, restoring iconic moves for each character, and reintroducing classic fighters from Mortal Kombat 3, something longtime fans were thrilled about.
With a very special guest, we have Ed Boon, co-creator of Mortal Kombat. He's going to be showing us Mortal Kombat Deception. A lot of you have stopped by. We've had people coming by all day yesterday, people coming by today and telling us it's one of the most exciting games they've seen on the show floor. So congratulations. Everyone's looking forward to it.
Thank you. We're very excited about it.
Great. And how long have you been working on it?
On this game, we've been on it about a year and a half now.
About a year and a half.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you go ahead and show us?
Oh, go Keith.
Actually, why don't you put your microphone a little further in front of your mouth?
Like that?
There
like
you
that?
go.
Okay.
Yep. Can you hear okay? Great. Everyone's been talking about how deep the game is and that there's a lot more. It's just incredibly well-rounded, more than they expected.
Yeah, we really, that was our goal from the beginning, was to just kind of surprise people with, what are we going to do next with the game. I think everybody expects the natural progression of enhancing the fighting engine, adding features, trying to make it, a deeper fighter experience. And we did that first. But then, since this is the second game on this generation of consoles, our goal was to really make the game do something dramatic in terms of content and actually have people go, oh, I didn't think they'd put in a board game, a puzzle game, a single-player adventure mode. Just all of that stuff kind of compiled into one. A lot of the comments we get are, you should have done the puzzle game as its own game on a Game Boy Advance or something like that. And, it's really... it's pretty exciting that they would have that kind of reaction.
Now, are these things that you've thought about doing with the MK series all along, or is this
No,
new?
Just after the last Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance did really well, and we were, you get into kind of like a sequelitis thing where, well, what are you going to do? Why are people going to want to play the new one? And we didn't feel like, just enhancing the fighting engine was enough of a reason. So we did do some really exciting things with our fighting engine in terms of like the roles that the backgrounds play. That was our big attempt, was to make the backgrounds as influential to the outcome of the fight as the characters that were chosen. And we feel like we've really gotten that, and our backgrounds are, each one is a memorable experience. You throw somebody into a meat grinder, you throw somebody off a cliff, you throw somebody off a building, and all of those are kind of combined to make the fighting experience as novel and a new experience as we can from the last game, but then go that extra mile and all the content.
It must be fun to sit around and think about new ways to throw people off buildings and things that just haven't been done before.
Yeah, when you have like 30 people on the team, every day you hear new ideas for fatalities and different things.
So all the developers really bring their personality to the game.
Oh yeah. It shows their true inner self.
Great.
Would you say that every background in the game has some sort of way to die? Like the Sky Temple, if you knock someone off twice, then they'll basically explode when they hit the bottom.
Yeah.
And spikes and stuff. Does every single background have something like that? Or?
Yes, every single one. There are positives and negatives scattered all throughout the backgrounds. I just knock somebody off here onto the spike. Each background, we really want people to kind of have a different strategy based on what they're playing. So this background, which is that we're playing right now, it's a collapsing cliff. As you're playing the game, it's constantly shrinking. So you're really going to be paranoid about, if your back is up against the wall, because you don't know at any point in time the background may collapse and you just find yourself falling off the cliff. You could have been winning the round and all of a sudden it's over. A lot more unpredictable matches happen in this game than any of the previous Mortal Kombats.
Do you find that that's something that really, moving to a console format has really allowed you to do? It seems like that would be kind of a jip in the arcade if someone just got killed immediately.
Absolutely.
So.
We wouldn't have dared try this in the arcade, because if you had, if you're winning the round and somebody comes around, turns it off, we're going to have an option to turn off the feature if it's going to be something like in a tournament mode or something. But we definitely wanted with the consoles to do stuff that we would never have even thought of in the arcades, and that's one of the big ones. I've always really wanted to have a dramatic change of events. Suddenly you're winning, suddenly you've lost the game.
Now, you talked about a lot that you've added to this game, but what are the MK staples, in your opinion, that you really wanted to carry over?
One big thing that we've heard from the last game was everybody wanted 2 fatalities. 2 fatalities per character. They really wanted to have more of the kind of signature Mortal Kombat stuff, and so that was the first order of business for us. We said we have to get 2 fatalities, and then we say, okay, let's go an extra step, and so we came up with this move called the Harry Carry move, where you can basically, instead of killing your opponent, you break your own neck, or you break your own leg, or something, or you tear out your own heart, or something insane like that.
Honorable out.
Right, exactly, and so it's we've kind of added that on top of it, and that's kind of like the whole Mortal Kombat. This game is a lot more focused on special moves. We're going to have a lot more projectiles and teleports per character than in the previous games, and in addition to that, we're trying to educate the casual gamer into some of the nuances that fighting games that some of the more sophisticated gamers take for granted, and that's like, opportunities for, when you dodge somebody, counters and reversals and all that. And then that's what these fight state indicators that we have on top of the power bars, they reveal kind of these windows, and we're going to, that's going to be a lot more of like the nuances that I think will bring it up to the casual gamer a little bit more clear. I think they'll get into the whole fighting mechanics a little more.
So basically, they won't have to sit there and examine frame data, go through all the weird stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Some of the stuff that is very common in our vocabulary is going to be. We're trying to introduce that to the more casual gamer who just kind of bangs on buttons and sees all that.
Right. Now I noticed Scorpion. Who are the old characters that'll return, and who are the new characters that you're talking about?
In terms of the character roster, we've really focused in on Mortal Kombat 2 and 3. All the characters that haven't had an appearance in a few games, Nightwolf, Sindel, Baraka, Melina, all of the kind of favorites. Everybody kind of has like, warm fuzzy feelings when they first played those characters, and we're kind of bringing them into the 3D mold, for the first time, and a lot of their signature moves from those older games are kind of translating into the newer Mortal Kombats. So we're pretty excited about that.
Very cool.
And then even like some of the characters that were in Deadly Alliance are getting some of their old moves back, right? I noticed Scorpion had the teleport punch.
Yeah, exactly. That's Sub-Zero.
A big addition.
Yeah, exactly. Sub-Zero and Scorpion, some of the moves that they didn't have in Deadly Alliance, we're bringing them all back.
Cool.
We're having the, try to any character that we're bringing back. Our goal is to give them at least every single signature move from the last game, and then some.
Cool.
So tell us more about the board games.
That's
chess.
The board game is really like our goal was just to have like kind of like a higher level strategy for the game. As you start the game here, you can see you can build a team or load a team. There are different classes of pieces, just like in chess. Mm-hmm. We have our pawn, our queen, our king, the bishop, and we call them the leader, the champion, the sorcerer, the shifter, and the grunt. And so you basically say, okay, which Mortal Kombat character do I want to be my leader? I'll say it's Ermac. Which one do I want to be my champion? I'll say it's Scorpion. Nightwolf's going to be the sorcerer. Boraicho will be the shifter, and Sub-Zero will be the grunt. And then you basically play this board game, and when you try to take a square from your opponent, you play Mortal Kombat to determine who's going to take that square. There are different variables that change as you're playing the board game, where it's kind of like, okay, I'm going to have a lot more power because I was playing my queen piece against you. It's against your pawn, so you start out with half a power bar. I have a whole power bar.
Oh.
There are magic squares that you occupy that also enhance your ability. There are spells you can cast. I mean, it really is like this intricate board game, but with the basic mechanic of Mortal Kombat being the determining factor as to who is going to get the square.
And now you progress through the game the way you would a game of chess. The rook moves in only one direction, and so forth.
We have different moving rules, so to speak. Like some pieces can move much further, other pieces can barely move at all, and it's kind of a combination of pieces' moving ability and its fighting ability that determines its strength. You notice right here that the computer's killing one of my pieces. That's one of the moves that one of the spells that you can cast is to kill your opponent's piece. Another one is to resurrect. So I can bring up my spell list here, and I can say, okay, I'm going to resurrect the grunt piece that they just killed, and that's kind of like the counter to the killing piece.
Nice.
And it's kind of like the managing of those spells, when to use them, when to save them, when to use them later, and then the final goal is being to kill your opponent's king piece, and you win the game. All these modes, the board game, the puzzle game, the fighting game, are all online, Xbox and PS2.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So now, and then in the chess mode, additionally, you're kind of bringing back some of the old backgrounds, kind of in a new 3D form, right?
Exactly. Every background in the chess game is MK2 or MK1 background brought up in 3D. So you see some of your favorites, the portal, the one with the monks. We're going to have the pit and all that stuff on the board games as a nostalgic, and even plays the songs, the music that was playing during those games back there.
Nice. So what sort of options are you going to offer as far as online play is concerned? Did you just play against another person? Are you going to keep scoreboards and ranks and that sort of thing?
You know, we really, I think when you first think of a fighting game and you think of, first thing you think of is tournaments.
Yep.
And I think we really wanted to, our initial goal was to get all the tournaments in, but then when we came up with all these modes of play, everybody said, you got to have the puzzle game playing online. You have to have it, and you got to have the board game playing online because everybody wants that experience. So we opted towards just getting those modes of play online, and probably, and imagine the next MK7 or something like that, we'd get the whole tournament structure going. And
cool.
This background is actually from MK1, and Baraka obviously is from Mortal Kombat 2. One of the basic mechanics we brought back that everybody's been asking for is the basic uppercut. So you have this ducking and the big power move that we had from. So a lot of like the basic mechanics we're bringing back in terms of the Mortal Kombat signature moves.
And then how about the combo structure? I know style change combos were kind of a big part of the combo system in Deadly Alliance. Are those back? Have those been expanded at all?
Yeah, you know what? We've the modification we made to Deception was really along the lines of balancing that out. If somebody had was really good with someone and had the 7, 8, 9 hit combos sequence, the victim was basically just kind of watched as he got beat up. We actually are adding breakers, basically, and the way to break out of a combo that will kind of balance the whole thing out. The mechanic won't be as heavily weighed on memorizing of combinations. You can still use those, but they won't be as dominant in terms of the final outcome of the battle.
That's good. I might actually have a fighting chance against Gersman now.
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. So what aspect of the game are you most excited about?
I think in general, I'm most excited about the fact that we're putting all this stuff into one game. The whole notion of making all these items. When you present the game, so you're playing the puzzle game here, it's its own menu. It has its own kind of like feel and an experience to the game. We really wanted to make it feel like you've bought 3 products, 4 products in there, and all of it is kind of comprised to make Mortal Kombat. Our goal, our long-term goal is to make Mortal Kombat not people that's just, that's a fighting game. We're going to be doing future adventure games on Mortal Kombat. We're going to be doing other fighting games, all these different kinds of classes of games, but with the name Mortal Kombat on it. That's kind of our goal, and I kind of feel like this is the first step to doing that. So people will kind of go, we have this cool puzzle game. It just happens to be Mortal Kombat.
It seems like kind of a natural progression in a lot of ways, because the Mortal Kombat series has always had such a rich mythology behind it, and the backstory's really been something that you could draw in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, we're pretty excited about just how people's they're just not expecting us to kind of do something like this with a fighting game. Everybody kind of thinks of fighting games, they add combos, they change their characters, they do that, and it's a little bit more less expected that we would do something like along the lines of this.
Yeah, well, I think everybody who's followed Mortal Kombat through the various incarnations will be really happy to see a good core Mortal Kombat game with a lot of new additions, but what they loved about it to begin with. You're really maintaining it and growing it at the same time. That's not easy. People try to do that all the time.
No, that's one of the things that we're actually most kind of proud of, is the fact that when we were doing Mortal Kombat 1 and Mortal Kombat 2, it was kind of like Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat. And it was like the 2D, and I really kind of consider that as a different era. It was the 2D gameplay. It was a lot simpler. It was a lot more, I think in some ways it was a lot more accessible. And now, we're still, we're still, doing really well with Mortal Kombat, and we're in a completely different era. Now we're playing with, the Tekkens and the Virtua Fighters, and it's like, I feel like that whole 2D stuff was like a different lifetime ago, and
seems like it.
It was a great experience, and I really miss the arcades and all that. But now it's just it's such a completely different animal designing these games for a console. It's not a home, or it's not an arcade experience anymore.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about the new portable systems out there? It seems like there could be a rebirth of 2D. I know Capcom's planning some some 2D games for the PSP and stuff like that. Do you ever think, maybe it might be time for an all-new MK game that's go back to 2D and revisit that sort of thing?
You know what? I was really surprised how much interest there is in the Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and 3 in the arcade treasures. People are really freaking out about that. I'd love to see, like Mortal Kombat 2 online. In some context, I'd love to get that happening, and with the whole tournament structure and a virtual arcade online and all that. I think that would be a really exciting thing. So a lot of that stuff is really kind of giving people a lot of ideas. What can we do with, this? Because I'd love it if there was a 2D Mortal Kombat line and a 3D Mortal Kombat line, kind of each having their own direction. There are things you can do with 2D that you can't really do with 3D and vice versa.
Cool.
Now in the puzzle combat, you have the attacks as well.
Yeah, there's a the one thing cool we've added with the puzzle game here is the introduction of super moves into the mix. I don't think people just kind of think of let me just get combos and do all that stuff like that. But now we've actually added the ability to perform a move that will actually dump crap on your opponent's puzzle or help your puzzle, and that plays into the strategy of which character are you going to actually pick. There's a real reason to pick a character, and there's a different mechanics that are involved with the different fighting styles. There's actually fatalities that happen at the end of the round.
Nice.
You shove somebody into a grinder, or they get smashed by a 1-ton boulder or what have you. It's pretty fun seeing all that stuff happen.
We would expect nothing less.
Right.
Oh, here we go. Yeah.
All right.
So will each character have their own fatality and own special move in the puzzle?
The fatalities are more like background fatalities.
Okay.
But they do have their own special moves that you can do, and you can actually we're going to have secret button combinations to do different fatalities and all that.
Wow.
So we're going to try to hide a lot of stuff there.
Yeah.
And finally, the online thing is obviously something we're really excited about. Just that whole experience of testing your skills against people that you've never met before, and with GameSpy on PS2 and Xbox Live or the Xbox.
Will the PS2 version have headset support for voice chat?
Yes. Right now we really want to give that trash talking ability.
That's, that's a big part arcade scene being as dormant as it is. I'm missing a lot of that lately.
Jeff's not getting enough in his daily life, so.
No. In my daily shove people against a pinball machine.
Right, or into the grinder.
Right.
And so we're looking at October release, right?
Yes, October 2004.
Great. Well,
Very
Ed,
excited.
thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
All
right. Thanks.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot. Okay, everyone at home viewing this and everyone in the audience, stick around. We have more interviews coming up, more giveaways, trivia, you name it. We'll be back soon.
The hype, it was real. And on October 4th, 2004, Mortal Kombat Deception officially launched, continuing the 3D era of the franchise with one of its most ambitious entries to date.
Mortal Kombat Deception actually is easily the most aggressive approach that we've had to making a fighting game. The story in Mortal Kombat Deception starts up exactly where the last Mortal Kombat game left off. The player can see exactly what happened to the Deadly Alliance of Shang Tsung and Quan Chi, and then it kind of takes off from there and introduces the whole Dragon King storyline, as well as this other kind of Sejinko character storyline that we've are introducing in Deception. Online play is probably one of the most exciting features that we've added to Mortal Kombat Deception. Since the arcades have kind of died down over the years, bringing Mortal Kombat online really kind of recreates that whole experience where you're able to go online, play against people that you don't know, see how your skills compared to them. And we're really excited about the fact that you're going to be able to play these different modes of play online as well. And I think it's going to add a huge new kind of fire to the whole fighting game genre that has never really existed before since the 90s. Every Mortal Kombat game that I'm going to be involved with is going to have Scorpion and Sub-Zero. I don't think anybody can really imagine those characters not in a Mortal Kombat game. But since we have so many characters from the previous games, we're doing a lot to introduce some of the classics that haven't been seen for 8 years. Characters like Nightwolf, Sindel, and as well as some of the favorites from Deadly Alliance like Blind Kenshi and Boraicho. A lot of this game, a lot of Mortal Kombat Deception is the result of feedback that we've gotten from players, and they wanted to see certain characters return, they wanted to see certain features return, and a lot of it is kind of like our response to those requests. Every Mortal Kombat game has introduced some characters to the whole mix, and seeing as we've been around making Mortal Kombat games for 12 years, we have a cast of over 40, maybe 50 characters that we can pick from. The main thing we've done in terms of getting more realistic characters is we've done a lot of research and work on enhancing our graphics engine since Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance. And with that extra time, we've managed to really increase the performance that we get out of the current generation of consoles. Mortal Kombat Deception has a much more responsive control and a lot faster attacks than any of the Mortal Kombat games before. In particular, it really has a more varied approach to the fighting styles. The different fighting styles that a character has are going to be much more varied compared to the previous game. They have a lot more faster attacks with weapons, a lot more of a faster hand-to-hand style, and the control of your character in particular is a lot more responsive than any of the other Mortal Kombat games. These new features that we've added to Mortal Kombat Deception are something we've always wanted to do since the last game. We've really tried to take the approach of not only listening to what the players want, but also giving them something that they're not expecting. And really nobody in the industry is really expecting us to do something like this. The natural progression of a fighting game is usually focusing in on just the mechanics of fighting. We've done that, but we've also really tried to take massive steps in terms of just improving the entire experience of playing Mortal Kombat. Fatalities have always been a very popular feature in the Mortal Kombat games, and this is another area where we've really listened to the players that have given us response. Mortal Kombat Deception has 2 fatalities per character, as well as a new feature which we're calling the Harry Carry move, where basically the player can finish himself off and not give the opponent the satisfaction of doing it. We've always taken the approach with Mortal Kombat to try to be different from the other games. I think a lot of the other games try to mimic each other and try to, incorporate certain features and maybe enhance it on that, whereas Mortal Kombat has always tried to be just the most outrageous, fun experience for the player, the most accessible fighting game that there is out there. And I think that really shows by how many games we tend to sell with every version. And that's kind of like our approach to making the new games. It's always been, let's create something new as opposed to trying to mimic something that was already done on another game and enhance that. Mortal Kombat Deception's Conquest mode is really kind of like a game in itself. It really has a lot of elements, RPG elements, adventure game elements, and at the same time it serves as like a training system for people who don't know fighting games too well. It teaches you the basics of the punching, the kicking, the maneuvering around your opponent, and at the same time it's kind of it's really like an avenue for us to tell the most expansive story that we have in any Mortal Kombat game. But we also wanted to add different modes of play that have nothing to do with the fighting game. We have a puzzle game that's built into it. We have an adventure mode that's built into it, and we have like a board game that you play, which is kind of like a higher level strategy that you play in order to, it's a lot of similarities to chess, where instead of taking the piece, you play Mortal Kombat to see who wins for that piece. All of these combined together really have made Deception like the most content-filled fighting game ever made, bar none. And because the backgrounds are so varied in different size and shapes, you're actually, part of your decision of which character you want to pick is going to be based on which background are we going to be fighting on, because certain characters will have advantages and disadvantages based on the background that you're fighting on, because the characters are varied in speed, size, ability, and with that mix, I think that's going to make it a lot more of an unpredictable outcome of the fight in the fighting game. Mortal Kombat Deception has added a new feature we call the death traps, where basically some of the backgrounds have areas that are dangerous where you can take damage. Not only take damage, but some backgrounds will actually have an area that will kill you instantly. So you can be losing a round, have no energy left, and lure your opponent into the one death trap, throw them into a big meat grinder, and boom, you've won the round. And that whole kind of unpredictable, turn the tables approach to the fighting game is really something that's new, and it's gonna be interesting to see how people use that strategy online as well as off.
Here is a quick spoiler alert, as I'm about to tell the story behind Mortal Kombat Deception. There will also be light spoilers for Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance. Now, if you're not a fan of spoilers, please advance this video to the gameplay overview section, as seen on the timeline below. Let's dive into this. Mortal Kombat Deception's story is primarily told through its Conquest mode, which is way more fleshed out this time around than compared to Deadly Alliance. If you remember back in Deadly Alliance, Liu Kang was eliminated by Shang Tsung, leaving the franchise without its leading man. Conquest picks things up by introducing us to a new protagonist, Shujinko. The story kicks off with a young Shujinko playing with friends, dreaming of the day he'll grow to be strong enough to defeat Shang Tsung. After parting ways with them, he heads into a dojo to begin his warrior training under Bo' Rai Cho, the same master who once trained Liu Kang himself. Shujinko trains hard, excelling through Bo' Rai Cho's various schools and mastering every lesson thrown his way. But when he attempts to leave the village and take on the world, Bo' Rai Cho stops him, telling him he's still too young and inexperienced to venture on his own. Just as Shujinko begins to walk away in disappointment, he encounters a mysterious eternal spirit named Damashi, who introduces himself as an emissary of the Elder Gods. Damashi claims that the realms are in danger and the Elder Gods have chosen Shujinko to be their champion. To do so, Shujinko must travel across the realms and collect powerful relics known as the Kamidogu. As a gift, Damashi grants Shujinko the power to mimic of those he battles, setting him on a path to become the ultimate warrior.
Greetings, Shujinko.
Who? What are you?
Do not be afraid. I am Damashi. I am an emissary of the Elder Gods.
The Elder Gods?
Yes. They are the powers that made this world possible, as well as many others. I have come to you on their behalf because they need your help.
What kind of help do gods need?
The Elder Gods are in need of a champion, one who could complete a quest to save the realms. Shujinko, will you accept this quest to save all that exists? You will be a true hero.
What if I refuse?
Then I will find another. One of your friends, perhaps. The one who pretends to be Shang Tsung.
No, not him. I will be your champion. What must I do?
You must traverse the realms in search of items of great importance.
But Master Bo' Rai Cho will not let me outside the walls of the town.
Not to worry, Shujinko. I will bestow upon you a great power, the ability to absorb the fighting skills from any fighter you encounter. This will give you the edge you will need on your quest. Go now, return to Master Bo' Rai Cho and show him you are an experienced fighter.
I will, Damashi. Thank you. I will not let the Elder Gods down.
After this encounter, Shujinko returns to Bo' Rai Cho and challenges him to a battle. Upon defeating his master, Bo' Rai Cho acknowledges Shujinko's growth and finally allows him to leave the village and explore Earthrealm. Outside the gates, Damashi appears once more to praise Shujinko's progress and explain the importance of the Kamidogu, 6 sacred items that must be gathered to stop the mysterious threat to the realms. Damashi also hints at a place called the Nexus, though he keeps its significance vague for now. As Shujinko moves forward, he follows a sign pointing east toward Bo' Rai Cho's house. There, the master offers Shujinko his most advanced training, helping him push his skills even further. 5 years pass and Shujinko surpasses all of Bo' Rai Cho's previous students. Ready to continue his journey into other realms, he's given one final task: recover Bo' Rai Cho's lost medallion before venturing further.
Congratulations, Shujinko. You have completed your training. It has always amazed me how quickly you learn. You have excelled far beyond my other students these past 5 years. It is as if you have been granted a gift by the Elder Gods themselves.
I'm grateful for your kind words, Master, and I am grateful for all that you have taught me.
You have learned much as my pupil, but my training can only take you so far. Experience is the ultimate teacher. To further your training, you must venture into the world. Through your journeys in this realm and others, you will attain enlightenment. May I suggest, for your first adventure, that you help me find my warrior's medallion. I seem to have lost it.
Very well, Master. I will help search for your medallion. May I ask where you saw it last?
I seem to recall having it a few nights ago at the docks. Perhaps you can begin your search there. I will stay here and look around the house. Farewell, Shujinko, and good luck.
Farewell, Master Boraicho.
After proving himself worthy, Shujinko's next task takes him to the beach, where Boraicho believes he's lost his medallion. Upon arrival, Shujinko finds a couple of men chatting nearby who advise him to speak with a fisherman at the end of the dock. The fisherman reveals that he had once taken the medallion home for safekeeping, only for it to be stolen by a group of local thieves. He tells Shujinko to recover the key from the thieves, which leads to a brief, direct confrontation. Shujinko throws hands and retrieves the key. With the key in hand, Shujinko returns to the fisherman's hut and recovers the stolen medallion. But just as he's about to bring it back to Boraicho, Damashi reappears. In a surprising turn, Damashi instructs Shujinko not to return the medallion, claiming it will serve him better as a symbol of status among warriors. This small act of deception starts to hint at something deeper and possibly more sinister about Damashi's guidance.
Greetings, Shujinko. It has been 5 years since you began your quest for the Kamidogu. Have you made any progress?
I am afraid not, Damashi. But I have learned Master Boraicho's fighting styles, and I have recovered his lost warrior's medallion. I was on my way to return it to him.
I see. That is quite an impressive artifact. I suggest you keep the medallion for yourself. Do not return it to Boraicho just yet. Such an item will give you credibility among master warriors.
I will do as you ask.
Good, very good. I must leave you now, but you will see me again. Good luck on your journey.
Shujinko then makes his way to the Lin Kuei Temple, a scared training ground for one of Earthrealm's most feared and disciplined clans. At first, a guard denies him entry, but when Shujinko flashes the warrior's medallion, the guard steps aside, allowing him to begin his training under Sub-Zero himself. Now a member of the Lin Kuei, Shujinko is given his first assignment: head west to where the Lin Kuei scouts have located an ancient and powerful artifact. Upon arriving, Shujinko finds a Lin Kuei warrior hidden in the trees who warns him that the Red Dragon clan is nearby and ready to strike. The scout offers to distract the enemy while Shujinko secures the artifact. Once retrieved, Damashi appears yet again, this time to confirm that the artifact is, in fact, one of the Kamidogu. Damashi then urges Shujinko to leave the Lin Kuei behind and seek out a place known as the Nexus. He reminds him that his true loyalty is not to any clan, but to the Elder Gods themselves.
Shujinko.
Damashi, I have joined the Lin Kuei. I have learned Sub-Zero's
That object you carry. Yes, it is as I suspected. Through the ignorance of the Lin Kuei, you have acquired the Earthrealm Kamidogu.
I have?
You must find the portal to the Nexus. When it opens, walk through to continue your quest.
But the Lin Kuei...
Must I remind you that your loyalties are to the Elder Gods, not to the Lin Kuei. Continue with your appointed quest.
Yes, Damashi. I understand.
Following Damashi's direction, Shujinko discovers the Nexus, a strange, mystical space with portals leading to multiple realms. When he places the Kamidogu from Earthrealm on an altar, a new portal opens, leading straight into the Netherrealm. Damashi explains that every time a Kamidogu is placed on an altar, another portal will activate, leading to a different realm. With each realm explored, Shujinko comes one step closer to completing his divine mission. As he enters the portal to the Netherrealm, Damashi reappears once more, warning him of the darkness that awaits. The Netherrealm, he says, is a place corrupted by evil, and even Shujinko unknowingly has already been tainted. Damashi blames his brief allegiance to the Lin Kuei for his corruption, suggesting that power and affiliation come at a cost. Still, the mission stands. Shujinko must brave the horrors of the Netherrealm to find the next piece of the Kamidogu, whether he's ready or not.
Is this not what you expected?
This place, it feels dark.
As dark as every heart that inhabits it. Normally, your presence here would not be possible. Only evil resides in the Netherrealm.
So how is it that I am here?
Perhaps your time with the Vim Kuei has left a small stain of corruption on your soul.
Corruption?
But you must not dwell on that. What is important is your quest. Most likely, the Netherrealm Kamidogu will not be found within the walls of this city. You must venture deep into these wretched plains of hell if you are to recover it.
This is not going to be pleasant, but I will complete my task.
Upon entering the Netherrealm, Shujinko begins his training under Ashura, a demon-turned-virtuous warrior wielding a holy blade. After proving his skill in combat, Ashura teaches Shujinko how to battle the Netherrealm's demonic inhabitants. She sets up a trial for him outside the gates, promising to find a worthy opponent. That opponent quickly reveals himself, Baraka. Shujinko stumbles upon Baraka and Ashura locked in a fierce argument. Baraka has been sent to eliminate Ashura due to the number of demons she has slain with her enchanted sword. The two come to blows and Shujinko steps in. After defeating Baraka in combat, Ashura then gives Shujinko another task, bring her Ermac. She believes that if she defeats him, her purification will be complete and she can finally leave this forsaken realm. Shujinko agrees and approaches Ermac, who reveals that his powers have been weakening since arriving in the Netherrealm. Referring to himself in plural, Ermac is a fusion of souls, he says. He required a soul stone to regain his strength. In exchange for finding this relic, Ermac offers to train Shujinko. Shujinko retrieves the soul stone and returns it to Ermac, who honors his word and trains him. After their sparring session, Ermac confides that the demon he's seeking is none other than Ashura. She has slain too many of Shao Kahn's warriors, and for that, she must pay. Shujinko, caught in the middle, decides to tell Ermac where to find her. We then cut to Ermac and Ashura face to face, preparing to fight. Ashura declares that defeating Ermac will complete her spiritual transformation. Ermac retorts that she will answer for her crimes against the Netherrealm. The two engage in a brutal battle. After defeating Ashura, Ermac mocks her strength, only for her to rise once more and launch herself at him in defiance. At the center of this battle lies another Kamidogu. Shujinko retrieves it and calls out to Damashi. Damashi appears, weakened by the Netherrealm's darkness. He explains that the realm saps his strength, which is why he hasn't appeared sooner. Still, he encourages Shujinko to continue his mission and return the Kamidogu to the Nexus.
Damashi! Damashi, where are you?
Who dares summon me to this? Oh, Shujinko. It has been many years since last we met.
Why have I not seen you in so long a time?
I take precautions to avoid this place. It drains me. If my avatar were to stay here for too long, or descend too far into the lower planes, I could be trapped here forever.
Your avatar? I do not understand.
I am without a physical body and am only able to appear to you by extending my spirit into the realms. It is my hope that I will one day return to the physical world. Until then, I must guide you as a simple apparition. And how goes your search?
I have found the Netherrealm Kamidogu.
So it seems. Well done, Shujinko. Return to the Nexus and place the Kamidogu on the altar.
Back at the Nexus, Shujinko is unexpectedly challenged by a mysterious warrior claiming to be the true champion of the Elder Gods. The stranger accuses Shujinko of defiling the Nexus and initiates combat. Upon defeating him, Shujinko presses onward, stepping through the next portal, this one leading to the Chaos Realm. Immediately upon arrival, Damashi appears. Shujinko questions him about the mysterious warrior in the Nexus, but Damashi claims ignorance. When told the warrior called himself the Elder God's Chosen, Damashi dismisses the claim, insisting he chose Shujinko. In the Chaos Realm, where instability is the only constant, Shujinko meets Hotaru. After defeating him, he earns access to travel freely through the portals. He then later faces off against Noob Spoke, earning the entry into another area of the realm. Here, Shujinko encounters Havoc, a cleric of chaos. Havoc offers a deal. Defeat 4 Satan guards and place a pennant on each of them. If Shujinko succeeds, Havoc will reward him with training. After taking them down, Havoc holds up his end of the deal, but not without a twist. Shujinko asks if his training was meant to kill him. Havoc admits it was, but since Shujinko survived, he rewards him with a portal key. Shujinko continues on, eventually discovering another Kamidogu floating above a strange shallow pool. As he walks through it, he feels lightheaded, as if time itself is slipping past him. Damashi appears once more, confirming that Shujinko has found the Chaos Realm's Kamidogu. Shujinko admits he feels older, changed somehow. Damashi explains that the passage of time in this realm is distorted, and that the labyrinth he traversed has aged him. Still, Damashi praises Shujinko's perseverance, and tells him that the Elder Gods will be pleased with his continued progress.
Shujinko, you have found the Chaos Kamidogu.
Yes, I found it in a labyrinth not far from here. But I feel strange. I feel like I have changed.
Indeed, you have. Many years have passed since you first entered this realm. I suspect the labyrinth you encountered contains some time-altering agent. Time has passed, but you have not perceived it.
Many years? By the gods. I do feel older. It must have been that strange liquid I stepped through.
That is a distinct possibility. It matters not. You should return to the Nexus and place it on the altar. You have done well, Shujinko. The Elder Gods will be pleased.
Returning to the Nexus, Shujinko places the Kamidogu on his pedestal. Another portal activates, this time to Outworld. Upon entering, Damashi greets Shujinko and immediately warns him of the realm's dangers. Under Shao Kahn's rule, Outworld has become fractured and treacherous. Shujinko asks who once ruled before Shao Kahn, and Damashi speaks of Onaga, the Dragon King, a former emperor who had once unified the realm. As always, Damashi warns Shujinko to remain cautious. The path ahead is fraught with danger, and Outworld's politics are anything but stable.
Welcome to Outworld, Shujinko.
This is Outworld? I have heard many stories about this realm. This is the domain of the Emperor Shao Kahn.
Emperor indeed. He is a thief, a deceiver. He is not the rightful lord of this realm. There was a time when he was much like Raiden is to your Earth realm, an advisor. But he abandoned his position and stole Outworld for himself.
Who ruled Outworld before Shao Kahn?
A powerful military commander, Onaga, the Dragon King. In that age, Outworld was unified. Under Shao Kahn's rule, however, Outworld has become a dangerous and chaotic place. Be wary as you continue with your quest.
I will keep my eyes open, Damashi.
Shujinko makes his way to Mileena, who agrees to train him. She's impressed he survived and offers him a task. Assist her in their cause by bringing the head of the rebel to Shao Kahn, a man who's been resisting their authority. Shujinko accepts and heads to the nearby village. Inside, he finds the rebel leader and explains the situation, that Tarkatan forces are gathering outside the city, and surrendering his life might grant his people amnesty. The man refuses, but proposes an alternative. He believes the city of Sado in the Older Realm might be willing to help. The problem is he has nothing of value to offer them. Then he remembers the priceless artifact rumored to be hidden in the living forest, and asks Shujinko to retrieve it and present it as a gift to the Satan. Shujinko agrees. Back in the forest, Shujinko encounters Jade patrolling the area. He explains his search for the artifact, but Jade reveals she already has it and challenges him to combat. After defeating her, she drops a piece of the Kamidogu. Damashi appears shortly after, impressed that Shujinko found the relic so quickly. Shujinko says he promised it to the Satan, but Damashi insists the Kamidogu belongs to the Elder Gods and must be placed in the Nexus. He also explains that Shujinko can't even enter the Order Realm without first doing so. Additionally, he knows that the Satan have no interest in defending a city they don't govern, but still tells Shujinko to go to Sato and explain the situation anyway. Shujinko agrees and heads back to the portal.
You have uncovered the outworld Kamidogu so soon? This is most fortunate.
I did not realize it was the Kamidogu. The overlord of Lei Chen had asked me to offer it to the Seidan Guardsmen as payment for their assistance in defending against the Tarkatan hordes.
It belongs to the Elder Gods and must be returned to them. You will place it on the altar with the others.
But I have given my word that I would bring back help from the Realm of Order. How will I broker a deal with them if I cannot offer the Kamidogu?
The point is moot. You cannot enter the Realm of Order without placing this Kamidogu on the altar. If indeed you wish to aid the Overlord, I suggest you offer the command of the city to the Seidan militia. Their principal philosophy is one of order and control. They will have little interest in defending a city unless they occupy it. Furthermore, they will not resist the chance to thwart Shao Kahn.
But the Overlord did not give me the authority to...
What he wants is of no concern to us. The Kamidogu is not his to use as a bargaining chip. Broker a deal with the Seidan if you feel so compelled, but do not lose sight of your primary objective. Return the outworld Kamidogu to its rightful place in the Nexus, and continue with your quest.
I will do as you ask, Damashi.
Upon entering the Order Realm, Shujinko materializes before a glowing sphere. Damashi appears and explains that he's now in Sato, the Realm of Order. Since Shujinko doesn't know their strict laws, Damashi warns him to avoid entanglements. Shujinko agrees to be careful and sets off. He finds Hotaru and pleads for help in defending the Outworld City from Shao Kahn's invasion. Shujinko promises full control of the city to the Seidan Guard. Hotaru, overwhelmed by civil unrest in Sato, promises a deal if Shujinko helps suppress the riots. The Seidan will lend their forces, but first he must be trained. After the training, Hotaru declares Shujinko an honorary member of the Seidan Guardsmen and orders him to take down Darius, the leader of the resistance. Shujinko accepts and defeats Darius. Hotaru, pleased with his success, announces that the rebellion has been quelled and keeps his promise. He leaves to defend the city of Lei Chen. Back in Outworld, Shujinko finds Hotaru pacing the streets of Lei Chen. Hotaru reveals he drove off the Tarkatan horde and has now assumed control of the city, claiming Governor Zephyro broke their deal. With the city under his command, Hotaru departs, fearing the Tarkatan may regroup. As Shujinko exits the city, a Tarkatan warrior intercepts him and escorts him to their camp. There, Baraka accuses him of betrayal. He was supposed to convince the governor to surrender, not bring reinforcements. Shujinko explains that the governor refused and that he did what he could to spare lives. Baraka suggests tearing him apart, but Shujinko challenges him to combat instead. After defeating Baraka, Shujinko demands to be trained in his fighting style as compensation. Baraka agrees to teach him a few techniques, but says he'll keep some to himself. He grants Shujinko safe passage to the portal and warns him never to return. Back at the Nexus, Damashi reappears with good news. The Elder Gods are pleased with Shujinko's efforts and granted him the opportunity to compete in the Mortal Kombat tournament in Earthrealm. Damashi reminds him that this has always been his dream, to stand toe-to-toe with the likes of Shang Tsung.
Shujinko, I bring good tidings.
What do you mean, Damashi?
You have sacrificed much in your service to the Elder Gods these long years. Therefore, they are granting you that which you have desired since your childhood, a chance to compete in the Mortal Kombat tournament in Earthrealm and defeat the sorcerer Shang Tsung.
I do not know what to say. How did they know of my dreams of defeating Shang Tsung?
Long ago, I watched you from afar as you played with your childhood friends. It was quite clear that you worshipped the warrior Kung Lao. But unlike your hero, you will be more than a match for Shang Tsung. You have absorbed the fighting styles of many great warriors. Now is your chance to fulfill your dream.
Thank you, Damashi. I will return to Earthrealm at once.
Shujinko enters the Earthrealm portal and soon spots Kenshi training in the distance. Curious, he approaches and asks about Kenshi's blindness. Kenshi recounts his tragic history with Shang Tsung. Later, Shujinko finds Nightwolf, The shaman immediately senses something is wrong and demands Shujinko leave, claiming he feels evil within him. Shujinko insists he feels no darkness, but Nightwolf offers a solution. He can purge the corruption from Shujinko's soul, but it will take years. After some thought, Shujinko agrees, recognizing it's for the best. This begins a long training regimen under Nightwolf. When it finally concludes, Shujinko has aged, his awareness has expanded, and his soul feels lighter. Nightwolf praises his progress and says that Shujinko is always welcome in the land of his forefathers.
Accomplished much since beginning your spiritual cleansing, Shujinko. Though the taint of evil continues its hold on you, my training has given you the ability to control it.
I am grateful for what you have done for me, Nightwolf.
I wish you luck on your journeys. You are always welcome in the lands of my forefathers.
After completing his training, Shujinko finds Shang Tsung standing alone in the middle of a small village. Shujinko tells him that he always dreamed of competing in the Mortal Kombat tournament. Shang Tsung says that's all well and good, but dreams aren't enough. If Shujinko wants to compete, he'll have to prove himself right then and there. A battle ensues, and after a hard-fought victory, Shang Tsung acknowledges his strength and grants him a place in the tournament. Shujinko then brings up an acquaintance who also wishes to compete. Shang Tsung raises an eyebrow and asks, "Is it Kenshi?" Shujinko nods. Shang Tsung tells him to inform Kenshi that he is welcome to join the tournament, which will take place on an island in the fortress in the Lost Sea. With that, Shang Tsung disappears, reminding Shujinko that the tournament is fast approaching. Shujinko relays the message to Kenshi, telling him that Shang Tsung already knew of his plans to confront him. Kenshi isn't surprised. He expected as much. In preparation, Kenshi offers to train Shujinko. Once training is complete, Kenshi says that he must find Shang Tsung and finally settle the score. He hopes Shujinko stays alive long enough to witness his revenge. Shujinko admits that he too has long awaited a battle against Shang Tsung. Kenshi then runs off to hunt his enemy down, disappearing into the horizon. Just as Kenshi departs, Damashi materializes once again. Shujinko explains that his training with Nightwolf has spiritually cleansed him, purging him of the evil that built up inside. Damashi, however, sees this as a problem. That dark taint allows Shujinko to access realms otherwise closed off. Without it, his journey could stall. Damashi insists he return to the Netherrealm to reabsorb some of that evil. Shujinko resists the idea, but reluctantly agrees after reflecting on Shang Tsung and the road still ahead.
Shujinko, I return to you because I sense that some change has taken place. You are different in some way.
I have undergone a spiritual cleansing. The warrior Nightwolf had detected an evil stain upon my soul. He was unable to remove it completely, but he has given me the ability to suppress it.
This is an unfortunate turn of events.
Unfortunate? An evil stain has been cleansed from my soul. My sense of awareness is as heightened as it was when Master Boraicho trained me.
The taint you refer to allows you to enter realms otherwise inaccessible to other beings. You will need to regain it in order to continue your quest. I suggest that you return to the Netherrealm. It will restore the impurities needed to enter the more accursed realms. Once your quest is finished, you are free to cleanse your spirit once more.
I cannot believe that you would ask such a thing of me. Surely the contamination I am already forced to carry is enough to access...
Do not question my order, Shujinko. I never promised your quest would be pleasant. You must fulfill your obligation to the Elder Gods. Return to the Netherrealm.
Have you forgotten the Mortal Kombat tournament? I was on my way to Shang Tsung's island to compete.
I understand your disappointment, but your dream of defeating Shang Tsung will have to wait. For now, you must fulfill your destiny.
I will do as you ask.
On his way to the portal, Shujinko is confronted by Raiden. The Thunder God says the portal is not meant for mortals. He must seal it to prevent intrusions from other realms. Shujinko introduces himself. Raiden, skeptical, remarks that the champion of the Elder Gods will fight with the strength of 10 warriors, and doubts Shujinko possesses such power. A battle begins. Once defeated, Raiden apologizes for underestimating him and grants him access to the portal. He promises to keep a close watch on the Mortal Kombat tournament and tells Shujinko that, though he may not understand the Elder Gods' reasoning, they must have a purpose for sending him back to the Netherrealm.
You seem to possess much strength and skill, Shujinko. Forgive me for doubting you, but if the Elder Gods have indeed unleashed their champion, they must be concerned that the end of the realms is near. Your presence might be connected with the Mortal Kombat tournament here in Earthrealm. Have you come to aid us?
I did come to fight for Earthrealm in the tournament, but I have recently been ordered to the Netherrealm.
I am sure the Elder Gods have their reasons for redirecting you at so crucial a time. It may be that the Shaolin have already chosen their representative. In any event, I will keep a close watch over the tournament's proceedings. Shang Tsung is a treacherous sorcerer. If he wins this time, Earthrealm will belong to Shao Kahn.
If you need my aid when I am finished with my task in the Netherrealm, search for me. I will gladly assist you.
Thank you, Shujinko. Good luck.
Shujinko materializes in the Scorched Realm once more and finds Scorpion. As he approaches, Scorpion reveals that he is searching for Quan Chi. Shujinko admits he's never heard of him. Scorpion asks for Shujinko's help in tracking him down, and he agrees, but under one condition. He must be allowed to learn Scorpion's combat techniques to gain the necessary impurities from this hellish realm. Scorpion initially refuses, claiming it will delay his quest, but Shujinko counters, saying that by training him, Scorpion gains a powerful ally. After a pause, Scorpion agrees and they begin. Once the training is complete, Scorpion senses Shujinko's rage has grown. He reveals that Quan Chi is responsible for the death of his clan and family, and for tricking him into believing Sub-Zero was the killer. Now, with a renewed fury, Scorpion sends Shujinko to confront the sorcerer. Shujinko finds Quan Chi, who immediately demands to know who he is. Suddenly, Scorpion appears from the shadows. Quan Chi is shocked, but Scorpion wastes no time. After a fierce battle, Quan Chi flees into the darkness. Scorpion shouts after him and chases him into the abyss. We then cut to a brief scene of Moloch and Draman lurking in the shadows. They hear the sound of combat echoing in the distance. Moloch turns to Draman and decides they should investigate. As Shujinko approaches the entrance to the nearby village, Damashi reappears. He informs Shujinko that he has absorbed enough rage to proceed. Shujinko agrees, and he has no desire to remain in Netherrealm a moment longer.
Shujinko, I sense you have regained enough of the essence of this realm to continue your quest.
I encountered a ninja specter named Scorpion from whom I absorbed much rage.
Well done. You may leave the Netherrealm.
Thank you, Damashi. I do not wish to remain another moment longer.
Back at the Nexus, Shujinko is greeted by Raiden, who informs him of a troubling development. Shang Tsung and Quan Chi have formed a deadly alliance. Worse yet, Quan Chi now possesses a powerful amulet that allows him to transverse realms. Not a Kamidogu, but still dangerous. Raiden is gathering warriors to mount an attack against the duo in Outworld, and Shujinko readily volunteers to help. After all, it wouldn't hurt to have a champion of the Elder Gods on their side. Upon entering Outworld again, Shujinko stumbles into a grim scene. Kano stands surrounded by guards overseeing forced labor. Shang Tsung and Quan Chi have enslaved the local population to construct a massive palace. Kano warns Shujinko not to try anything stupid or else. Within one of these enslaved villages, Shujinko finds Li Mei. She explains that her people were the first to be captured by the Deadly Alliance. Her only hope of freeing them is to enter the tournament and win. Concerned for her safety, Shujinko offers to train her using the combat skills he's picked up over the years. She accepts. After training and sparring with her, she praises her improvement, but instead of risking her life in battle, he suggests another option. Hotaru from the Realm of Order. If anyone could help her village, it's him. Shujinko travels to Li Shen to find Hotaru, but as he arrives, he's accused of violating local law, stepping outside after curfew. Hotaru is unrelenting and Shujinko is arrested on the spot.
Hotaru, it is good to see.
You have violated my ordinance. You were to go indoors when the toll sounded.
Ordinance? I just recently arrived. I had no knowledge of any ordinance.
Ignorance is not an excuse. I am placing you under arrest for disregarding the laws of this city. Your trial will take place in the Realm of Order.
Years pass, and aged Shujinko is finally brought to a holding cell awaiting trial. Confused, he questions the guards, only to witness Daryu appear out of nowhere. Snapping one of the guards' necks and knocking others unconscious, the rogue assassin reveals he was hired by Damashi to break Shujinko out. Daryu hands him a key taken from the fallen guard, warning that had the trial proceeded, Shujinko would have unjustly been imprisoned for decades. After escaping, Shujinko finds Hotaru, but instead of thanks, Hotaru expressed disappointment. He was going to testify in Shujinko's defense, but now that an assassin was involved, he sees no choice but to sentence him to death. Forced to fight, Shujinko defeats Hotaru in battle and retrieves the Order Realm's Kamidogu. Damashi reappears shortly after. Shujinko, now visibly delusioned, demands answers. Why did Damashi send an assassin? Would the Elder Gods have condoned this? Damashi claims they wouldn't object, but offers no real reassurance. He urges Shujinko to return the Kamidogu to the Nexus so that the path to the Edenian portal may open.
You have the Order of Kamidogu, I see.
With the help of your assassin, yes. I do not understand how you could condone such an action. Are these the methods of the Elder Gods?
I am not an Elder God. I am merely your guide. In any event, do not presume to judge my methods. You yourself have done many dishonorable things during your lifelong journey. To answer your question, however, the Elder Gods would not have objected to the methods applied.
I may have done questionable things during my service to the Elder Gods, but I have also grown much since my quest began. I cannot believe the Elder Gods would not take exception to such brutal tactics.
The Elder Gods do not directly interfere with the realms, nor do they judge the events that occur therein. Their duty is merely to assure that the realms exist.
And my quest plays some part in their duty?
I will not explain further. All will be revealed in time. Take the Kamidogu to the Nexus and continue your search.
Yes, Damashi. I will do as you ask. But I cannot help but feel disenchanted with the quest.
Upon arriving in Edenia, Shujinko is once again greeted by Damashi. He informs Shujinko that the final piece in the Kamidogu lies here in this realm, but something feels off. Damashi warns that someone else may also be after the Edenian Kamidogu, someone dangerous. Shujinko takes a moment to question the Kamidogus themselves. What exactly are there? Damashi explains long ago there were 6 Elder Gods and the One Being. The One Being fed off the Elder Gods, draining their power. In response, the gods forged the Kamidogu to shatter the One Being's influence and separate themselves from its grasp. These relics became the foundation of the 6 realms, and now the final piece must be secured before it falls into the wrong hands. As he explores Edenia, Shujinko encounters Katana. She is shocked. He emerged from the portal by the Elder Gods themselves. She explains that Edenia has once again been merged with our world and is under Shao Kahn's rule. Kahn is hunting down a powerful artifact. Shujinko quickly realizes she's referring to the Edenian Kamidogu. Katana reveals her plan. Her mother, Queen Sindel, must be freed to lead the Edenian resistance. But Katana can't free her. She needs to return to our world and lead the charge against Kahn. Sindel is being guarded by Tanya, and only Shujinko can reach her in time. Shujinko agrees to help. Katana leaves, and his search begins. Eventually, he finds Tanya loitering beneath an overpass. He asks if she knows a woman named Tanya. She responds coldly that she is Tanya, and she's been ordered to guard Sindel with her life. If Shujinko wants to reach the queen, he'll have to go through her. After defeating Tanya, Shujinko finds Sindel. She looks over at him and remarks that he seems a bit old to be joining Kahn's military. Shujinko explains that he's here on Katana's behalf. Sindel wastes no time. She insists they leave immediately before they're discovered. She asks them to follow her and promises a reward for his bravery. Once outside, Sindel leads him to a palace. She introduces herself properly and thanks him for setting her free. As promised, she offers to teach him the skills of an Edenian knight. Shujinko gladly accepts. Following their session, Sindel reveals that she possesses the Edenian Kamidogu. She hands it over to Shujinko, not wanting it to fall into Shao Kahn's hands. She then departs to reunite with Katana in Outworld, determined to end Kahn's rule once and for all. Before leaving, she instructs Shujinko to return the Kamidogu to the Nexus. Damashi appears one final time, praising Shujinko for recovering the final piece. He asks him to place a Kamidogu on the altar so that he may finally regain his physical form.
I see you have found the last of the Kamidogu.
Yes, Damashi. I was on my way to the Nexus to place it upon the altar.
Because you have recovered all the Kamidogu, I will receive a physical body and will be free to dwell in the physical world. My rebirth is to take place soon in our world.
That is wonderful news. Congratulations, Damashi.
Hurry, take the Edenian Kamidogu to the Nexus. I will meet you there.
It will be good to finally bring this quest to an end.
As Shujinko prepares to place the final Kamidogu, Scorpion suddenly appears. He declares that Shujinko's meddling with the Elder Gods ends now. He remembers training him in the Netherrealm, and now he's here to teach him the final fatal lesson. With Scorpion defeated, Shujinko places the final Kamidogu piece onto the altar, but nothing happens. Then, from the shadows, a massive figure emerges, the Dragon King. Shujinko is stunned. He doesn't recognize the figure. The being introduced himself as Onaga, the Dragon King. And then, the twist. Onaga reveals that Shujinko has been nothing but a pawn in his resurrection. He holds the Mashi, Shujinko's so-called guide, in the palm of his hands, revealing him to be nothing more than a projection, a disguise used to manipulate him into retrieving all the Kamidogu. There's still one more artifact, one that will open the gateway to the Elder Gods themselves. Onaga already has it, and he has no intention of using it to help. As the Dragon King prepares to strike, Shujinko narrowly escapes, devastated and betrayed. Everything he believed in was a lie.
I have defeated him. Now I am free to complete my quest. I do not understand. The Kamidogu should have been transported to the Elder Gods. Why is it not happening?
Because you have not completely finished the quest.
What are you?
Ah, yes. Familiar words. Perhaps this will help you to understand.
Damashi! What has he done to you? Let him go!
Shujinko! Please save me! Oh, fool! Damashi does not exist. The avatar you see before you is merely a projection of my consciousness. I manipulated this astral puppet from beyond the boundaries of death, and in turn, manipulated you. I deceived you into bringing me the means of attaining ultimate mastery over reality.
So it seems that I have indeed known you all these years. Then by what name shall I call you now? Tell me who you really are, demon.
I am Onaga, the Dragon King of Outworld and soon-to-be ruler of all that exists. I must thank you for bringing me so much power. The Kamidogu are mine.
You may have them. They do nothing. You have wasted your time. Nothing happened when I placed them all on the altar.
Not all. If you had found the last piece, the altar would have transported them to the Elder Gods. But the last piece is currently in Outworld in the possession of a fool sorcerer. I will deal with him later. For now, I will take these artifacts you have so dutifully collected for me. I am afraid they will not make it into the hands of the Elder Gods after all. And so, Shujinko, your quest is done. Prepare for death.
The Dragon King has not emerged from the portal. Perhaps he has lost interest in pursuing me. More likely, he has gone to Outworld and will confront the sorcerer who possesses the last remaining object. I have been a fool. Blinded by the lure of adventure, I have endangered the realms and betrayed the Elder Gods. The blame is mine alone. What have I done?
Now that we know Shujinko's story, we turn our attention to the game's intro. In the aftermath of the chaos unleashed in Deadly Alliance, Earthrealm's finest warriors have been defeated. The Deadly Alliance, Shang Tsung and Quan Chi had completed the Dark Plan. Despite the warnings of the Elder Gods, Raiden, the Thunder God, defied their wishes and faced Deadly Alliance alone in Mortal Kombat. For a time, it seemed Raiden would emerge victorious. He outmatched Shang Tsung and Quan Chi, striking them with a lightning-fast precision. But Shang Tsung's drawing power from the Soul Nado absorbed the soul and unleashed a devastating fireball that brought the Thunder God to his knees. With Raiden defeated, the once united alliance turned on each other. Shang Tsung, eager for Quan Chi's amulet, began a fight for dominance. But even Shang Tsung's relentless efforts couldn't defeat his former ally. Just as Quan Chi stood triumphant, a hulking figure emerged from the shadows. The tombs of the Dragon King's mummy stirred and knelt in reverence. It was then that Quan Chi's worst fear was realized. Onaga, the Dragon King, had returned. With the Dragon King's return, the tides of power shifted. Quan Chi, desperate to retain control, attempted to use his dark magic against Onaga, but it was futile. Despite the combined forces of Shang Tsung, even Raiden, Onaga was unstoppable. Raiden, with his godlike power, gathered his essence into a singular explosion blast, obliterating the palace and everything within it. But the Dragon King was unharmed, and with his newfound strength, Onaga claimed the amulet, securing his reign of terror. The Deadly Alliance was no more, and Mortal Kombat Deception could begin.
It was not by chance that this struggle came to be. The blame falls squarely upon my shoulders for giving evil the chance it needed, and therefore fulfilling an ancient prophecy. Raiden's Earthrealm champions had failed to stop the Deadly Alliance from fully resurrecting the mummified army of the Dragon King. In the end, only Raiden himself stood between Earthrealm and total destruction. Defying the Elder God's wishes, he alone challenged Quan Chi and Shang Tsung in Mortal Kombat, Earthrealm's last hope for freedom. Raiden fought well against the two sorcerers, and it seemed as though victory was at hand. But the combined might of Quan Chi and Shang Tsung proved to be overwhelming, even for a Thunder God. Raiden was defeated. The Deadly Alliance had won. Their victory was short-lived. As suspicion and lust for power overcame both Quan Chi and Shang Tsung, the former allies turned on each other. The Deadly Alliance was no more. Quan Chi defeated Shang Tsung and reveled in his conquest. But it is said that there is only one true ruler of Outworld. And that ruler had returned. Former Emperor of Outworld, the Dragon King. The prophecy had been fulfilled. The Dragon King had indeed returned to Outworld to reclaim his army and impose his dominance. Death awaited all who stood in his way. And so it was that a new alliance was formed out of desperation. Sworn enemies joined forces to combat a greater threat. Raiden began to realize that even their combined might was not enough to defeat the Dragon King. There was only one chance left. Raiden's sacrifice was in vain, for the blast had little effect on the Dragon King. Now Onaga has what he needs to shape the realms as he sees fit. I was the fool who brought him this power. Only I can destroy this threat, born of deception.
The story of Mortal Kombat Deception's Conquest mode is surprisingly deep. We're not just playing through a standard campaign, we're witnessing key moments and backstories that connect the dots before and after the very first Mortal Kombat tournament. Think about it. We watched Shujinko get invited to Shang Tsung's island to compete, only to miss the tournament entirely because he's too busy chasing after Onaga. We see the realm slowly begin to shift as the tournament draws near, and we even get to witness Draman and Moloch lending a helping hand to Quan Chi. One thing I really appreciated about this Conquest mode is how it made a few of the endings from Deadly Alliance canon. Take Scorpion's ending, for example, where he gets thrown into a Soulnado and sees the other gods. That moment completely shifts his perspective, and by the end of Conquest, it's Scorpion who appears to stop Shujinko. Now I realize that he's been manipulated this entire time. It's a small detail, sure, but it shows how much thought was put into continuity. What also makes this mode feel so alive is how former playable characters show up as NPCs. You run into Blaze, who wasn't even playable on the Xbox and PS2 versions, and classic characters like Johnny Cage and Sonya Blade, each with something unique to offer. Hell, even Shao Kahn shows up. The world feels rich, lived in, and reactive. And watching Shujinko spend his entire life unknowingly serving Onaga, that moment really hits you in the feels by the end. At its core, Deception uses, well, deception as the foundation of its entire narrative. It's more than just a plot twist. It's the lens through which the whole story unfolds. The most obvious example is Shujinko's journey. For decades, he's manipulated by a mysterious guide named Damashi, who claims to serve the Elder Gods, believing he's on a noble quest. Shujinko dedicates his life to collecting the Kamidogu, but in the end, he finds out the devastating truth. Damashi was never a divine messenger. He was the consciousness of the Dragon King Onaga all along. This twist isn't just there for shock value. It serves as a cautionary tale about blind faith, unchecked ambition, and how easily good intentions can be twisted by manipulation. Shujinko's unwavering trust in Damashi leads to disaster. He becomes the very reason Onaga is able to rise again and claim near absolute power. But deception doesn't end with Shujinko. It runs deep through the entire cast. Melina impersonates Katana to mislead Edenian forces. Noob Saibot operates in the shadows with secret agendas. Even characters like Nightwolf and Raiden wrestle with trust, betrayal, and the weight of their decisions. The entire narrative structure is layered with misdirection, hidden motives, and constantly shifting allegiances, mirroring the unpredictable nature of the Mortal Kombat universe. And let's not ignore the title itself. Deception isn't just a cool name. It's a meta-commentary on the game's mechanics and storyline. Just like Shujinko, the player is taken on a journey where not everything is what it seems, and placing trust in the wrong hands can have fatal consequences. Even the name, Damashi, subtly foreshadows his true identity. It could be translated as deception or trickery. It's a brilliant touch that encourages players to question everything and look beyond appearances. Now, let's talk about the characters. Like always, we start with the newcomers first. First up is Shujinko, the game's central figure, whose journey we follow over the course of several decades. Then there's Ashura, a demon from the Netherrealm seeking redemption by slaying other demons with her enchanted sword. Dario is a former Satan guardsman turned mercenary hired by Darius, the leader of the Satan Resistance, a faction rebelling against the oppressive Order Realm regime. Havik, a cleric from the Chaos Realm and Hataru's rival, aims to resurrect Shao Kahn and plunge our world into chaos. Speaking of Hataru, he leads as the Satan Guard and sides with Onaga in the hopes of enforcing strict order across the realms. Then we've got Kira, a former arms dealer recruited into Cabal's reformed Black Dragon. Alongside her is Cobra, a street fighting martial artist turned killer who joins the organization with her. And finally, we have Onaga, the Dragon King himself, former Emperor of Outworld, now resurrected and ready to reclaim his throne. He serves as the game's final boss. As for returning fighters, we've got a pretty packed roster. Baraka, Bo' Rai Cho, Ermac, Jade, Cabal, Kenshi, Li Mei, Liu Kang, Melina, Nightwolf, Noob Saibot, Raiden, Scorpion, Sindel, Smoke, Sub-Zero, and Tanya all make their return. There were a few console-exclusive characters on the GameCube version. We got Goro and Shao Kahn, and the PSP version went even further, bringing back Goro, Kahn, and adding Blaze, Frost, Jax, and Katana to the mix. Now let's analyze the new characters first, starting with the leading man, Shujinko. He's a complex and polarizing character in the game, serving as a central protagonist in the conquest mode. As a young man, Shujinko was driven by a sincere desire to achieve greatness and serve the Elder Gods, which made him both ambitious and ultimately susceptible to manipulation. His journey began with noble intentions but was marred by being naive. He was deceived for decades by Damashi, who was in truth the Dragon King Onaga, into collecting the Kamidogu relics, believing he was fulfilling a righteous quest. This long period of deception led him to unwittingly unleash one of the greatest threats the realm had ever faced, a mistake that will haunt him and define much of his character arc. Throughout his travels, Shujinko developed immense martial prowess thanks to the unique power granted by Onaga, the ability to absorb the fighting techniques of any warrior he encountered. This ability, while making him one of the most versatile and powerful combatants, also symbolized his role as a perpetual student, someone always learning, yet not always wise in judgment. Shujinko's character is marked by a blend of humility and guilt. Even after gaining the admiration of others for his eventual heroics, he struggled with the shame of having been so thoroughly deceived and causing so much harm. His wisdom gained through age and experiences tempered by the regret of his actions and a determination to make amends. Shujinko's ending in Deception is a story of redemption and self-realization. Recognizing the chaos and division amongst the warriors of Outworld, he unites them in a pivotal moment, absorbs their combined powers, and a direct use of the very gift Onaga intended as his own advantage. Shujinko then destroys the Kamidogu, stripping Onaga of his invulnerability, and defeats the Dragon King in combat. This act not only redeems Shujinko for his earlier failings, but also demonstrates his growth from a naive pawn to a decisive hero capable of outsmarting his manipulator. In his words, the gift given by Onaga became the instrument of Onaga's undoing, and the realms were preserved as they had been since the beginning.
So that I would be able to defend myself during the quest to find the Kamidogu, Onaga had given me the power to absorb the fighting ability of any warrior I encountered, but his gift would prove to be his undoing. The warriors in Outworld were in disarray, heroes were not focused on the true threat of Onaga, and villains were unaware that they were bringing about their own destruction by serving him. I united them, and in one moment absorbed their combined fighting power. I shattered each of the Kamidogu, the source of his invulnerability. This weakened Onaga, and I attacked him without mercy. His mortal form was no match for a combatant infused with the powers of so many warriors. The Dragon King was finally defeated. The realms will remain as they have since the beginning.
Now let's get into the demon seeking redemption, Ashura. Her story is defined by a quest for purification and redemption. Unlike many of her peers, she's not content with the cycle of violence and torment that defines NetherRealm's existence. Instead, she seeks escape and transformation, believing that by slaying other demons with her mystical blade, she can cleanse the evil from her soul and ultimately ascend from the NetherRealm. This journey is marked by deep frustration, obsession, and a complex blend of rage and hope. She's driven as much by guilt over her past as by a desperate desire for a better existence. Ashura's personality is layered. While she can be gracious and even helpful, such as when she trains Shujinko in demon-slaying techniques, she is also portrayed as angry and sometimes cold, especially towards those she perceives as obstacles to her mission. Her obsession with purification is both her strength and her flaw. The Crisp Blade, which she believes to be a tool of salvation, is in reality a manipulative artifact that exploits her desire for redemption, pushing her to commit acts of violence under the guise of spiritual cleansing. This duality makes Ashura a compelling figure. She embodies both light and darkness, kindness and cruelty, and her journey is much about self-acceptance as it is about escape. Her ending in Deception encapsulates her arc of struggle and partial triumph. After defeating Noob Saibot, whose presence in the NetherRealm is marked by an earned rather than inherent evil, Ashura finally achieves her long-sought ascension from the NetherRealm. However, the sword that enabled her escape does not accompany her, remaining behind to potentially repeat its cycle with another lost soul. This outcome is bittersweet. Ashura attains her goal leaving the NetherRealm, but the very instrument of her supposed purification is revealed to be a lingering, unresolved element of her story. The ending suggests that while Ashura has made significant progress towards redemption, her journey is incomplete, and the forces that shaped her remain at play.
Noob Saibot was not originally a demon, which might explain why Ashura sensed such great evil in him. He had to earn his place in the NetherRealm. He actually desired to remain there. His companion, however, seemed to be having a problem adjusting. Perhaps there was some good left in the cyborg. Whatever the case, Noob would have to face Ashura alone. Ashura defeated Noob Saibot and finally earned her ascension from the NetherRealm. But the sword that made her escape possible did not travel with her. I suspect it still remains in the NetherRealm, waiting to release another of its denizens from damnation.
Now let's get into Dario. His life took a dramatic turn after he killed an assailant in a fit of rage, a single act of chaos that led to his imprisonment and marked him as an outcast in the eyes of his society. His escape during a riot allowed him to reinvent himself as a mercenary, no longer bound by the strict codes of the Sidu, but not fully embracing lawlessness either. Dario's personality is often described as cynical and detached, shaped by betrayal and the harsh realities of his world. He operates as a hired assassin, motivated by personal gain rather than allegiance to any cause. Yet traces of his former discipline and honor linger beneath his hardened exterior. Despite his mercenary lifestyle, Dario is not without principle. His actions are typically calculated and risk-averse. He prefers to ambush his targets rather than confront them directly, reflecting his pragmatic approach to survival and success. However, his ending in Deception reveals a more complex side. When tasked with assassinating his former fellow guardsman, Hotaru, Dario chooses to announce his intentions rather than strike from the shadows. This deviation from his usual tactics suggests that despite his cynicism, a vestige of honor remains within him, a need to face his past and confront his old comrade openly. This act, the act of announcing his attack, shows Dario, for all his delusionment, still clings to a personal code when it truly matters.
Normally, Dairu took no risks and ambushed those he had been hired to kill. But in this case, he felt compelled to announce his intentions to kill his fellow guardsman Hotaru. There still must have been some code of honor left in his cynical heart. Hotaru was defeated, but before Dairu could reveal who had commissioned the attack, Hotaru drew his dying breath.
Now let's turn our attention to Darius. Once a Satan guardsman, Darius grew disillusioned with the oppressive authoritarian nature of Sidu's government and became the leader of a growing resistance movement. To many within the regime, he is branded a terrorist, but to his followers and those who suffer under Sato's strict laws, he is a hero and a liberator. Darius' leadership is marked by strategic manipulation. He's known to exploit the very laws of Seto to recruit powerful allies, even orchestrating personal tragedies, such as hiring assassins to provoke future recruits to swell his ranks. This willingness to blur ethical lines highlight his pragmatic ends, justify the means philosophy. Darius' personality is defined by charisma, intelligence, and a relentless drive to upend the status quo. He's not motivated by personal gain or monetary reward, but by a vision of a freer, more just Seto. Even if that vision requires subversion and calculated risk, his approach to revolution is both ideological and tactical. He is patient, always scheming and waiting for the right moment to strike, and he's unafraid to make bold moves when opportunities arise. Darius' rivalry with Hotaru, the embodiment of Satan law and order, is central to his narrative, representing the clash between rigid authority and insurgent change. In his ending, Darius' revolutionary ambitions reach fruition. After employing the mercenary Dario to steal the Declaration of Order, the most prized document of the Satan government, Darius publicly announces his capture, sparking outrage among Seto officers. This act of defiance forces the government's hand, leading Hotaru and his forces to direct conflict within the resistance. As Darius predicted, the authorities underestimate the strength and numbers of his followers, resulting in Hotaru's defeat and a collapse of the regime's military resistance. With the government destabilized, Darius and his revolutionaries prepare to seize control of the seat and Senate, heralding a new era for the realm. Darius' ending encapsulates his role as both a disruptor and a visionary, someone willing to change a seemingly unbreakable system through bold action and strategic planning. While his methods may be controversial, his story is ultimately about the fight against tyranny and the belief that even the most rigid societies can be transformed through courage, cunning, and collective action.
The mercenary Dairu had succeeded in stealing the Declaration of Order and was paid many coins for his efforts. After Darius hid the document, he announced its capture to the world and heralded a new beginning for the realm of Seto. As Darius had predicted, officials were outraged that the resistance had stolen the most prized possession of the Satan government. Hotaru was ordered to lead the charge against them. He underestimated their numbers, however, and the resistance defeated him and his men. The Senate would soon be in the hands of the revolutionaries.
Moving on to Havik. Originating from the Chaos realm, Havik is a self-styled cleric of chaos whose motivations are fundamentally different from the typical villains or heroes in the series. He's not driven by a lust for power, revenge, or conquest, but by a relentless desire to disrupt order and promote anarchy wherever he goes. This makes him a true wild card. His alliances and actions are detached solely by whether they will create chaos, not by loyalty or morality. In his deception ending, Havik's chaotic ambitions reach a gruesome crescendo. After the defeat of the Dragon King Onaga, Havik seizes the opportunity left by the victor's carelessness. He consumes Onaga's still warm heart, absorbing the Dragon King's power to reanimate the dead. Havik recognizes that Onaga's vision of total domination would have stifled the endless turmoil he cherishes, so he vows to restore chaos to Outworld. His immediate plan to resurrect Shao Kahn, ensuring that the cycle of disorder and conflict continues. This ending perfectly encapsulates Havik's role in the Mortal Kombat mythos. He's not interested in ruling or bringing peace, but in perpetuating a world where chaos reigns supreme and no order is ever allowed to settle. Havik's character stands out for his philosophical commitment to chaos and the unique threat he poses. He is a villain not because he seeks domination, but because he opposes stability itself, making him a perpetual antagonist on all sides. His unpredictability, resilience, and singular focus on disorder make him a fascinating figure, one whose ambitions always threaten to plunge the realms back into turmoil.
The others had defeated the Dragon King, but left his broken body unattended on the floor of his throne room. Not long ago, a similar fate had befallen his former advisor, Shao Kahn. Havik ripped the still warm heart from the carcass and consumed it, thus absorbing Onaga's power to reanimate the dead. Had the Dragon King succeeded in his plans for total domination, the never-ending turmoil of life would have come to a stifling halt. Those who defeated him believed that the realms were at rest once more, but Havoc vowed to restore the chaos that once ravaged Outworld. Shao Kahn would rule again.
Now let's look at Hotaru. He's the embodiment of absolute order and discipline within this game. As the general of the Seidan Guard from the Order Realm, he is wholly devoted to the enforcement and preservation of law, often to an extreme degree. Hotaru's worldview is shaped by the belief that freedom inevitably leads to anarchy, chaos, and ultimately suffering, and thus he sees the imposition of strict order as a moral imperative. This ideology makes him a classic example of lawful evil. He is not motivated by personal malice, but by a rigid, unyielding commitment to rules and authority, even when this results in oppression or cruelty. Hotaru's actions throughout the series reflect his dogmatic mindset. He's known for his ruthless suppression of dissent, the harsh punishment of even minor infractions, and his willingness to ally with powerful forces such as Onaga, the Dragon King, if it means maintaining or restoring order. He does not hesitate to dominate or subjugate others in the name of law, and his sense of justice is entirely devoid of compassion or flexibility. This is evident in his interactions with both allies and adversaries. For example, he arrests Shujinko for violating a curfew he was unaware of, demonstrating that Hotaru values the letter of the law above all else, regardless of circumstance or intent. His leadership style is authoritarian, commanding absolute obedience from the Seidan Guard and broking no tolerance for rebellion or even questioning his authority. Hotaru's ending in Deception further illustrates his devotion to order at any cost. After capturing Sub-Zero in the wilds of Outworld, Hotaru brings him before Onaga and is tasked with carrying out his execution. Hotaru fulfills his duty without hesitation, seeing Sub-Zero's demise not as a personal victory or an act of vengeance, but as a necessary demonstration of the consequences for those who challenge established authority. The execution serves as a warning to all who might defy the Dragon King, reinforcing Hotaru's beliefs that law must be enforced through strength and fear if necessary. In this way, Hotaru's actions and fate are a direct reflection of his character, a zealot for order, willing to sacrifice anything and anyone to maintain the structure he so fervently believes in. Ultimately, Hotaru stands as a compelling antagonist whose commitment to order is both his greatest strength and his most dangerous flaw. His presence in the Mortal Kombat lore highlights the perils of unchecked authority and the moral ambiguity of enforcing law without mercy or understanding.
In the wilds of Outworld, Hotaru captured the renegade Earthrealm warrior Sub-Zero and brought him before the Dragon King. Onaga's judgment of Sub-Zero was swift, and Hotaru was given the task of carrying out his punishment, death. His fate served as a reminder to all who would challenge the authority of the Dragon King.
Now let's look at the Black Dragon with Kira. She is a resourceful and calculating character and is the first recruit for Cabal's reformed Black Dragon clan. Her backstory sets her apart from many of her peers, originally operating as a black market arms dealer in the mountains of Afghanistan. Kira disguised herself as a man to sell weapons to terrorist organizations. When her true identity was revealed during a deal gone bad, she fought her way out with cold efficiency, a display that caught the attention of Cabal, who saw her in the ruthless pragmatism, a tactical mindset reminiscent of the Red Dragon, the Black Dragon's competition. Kira's willingness to take risks, combined with her level-headedness and rational approach to violence, made her an ideal candidate for the new crime syndicate. Kira's Deception ending further underscores her intelligence and adaptability. After successfully fighting alongside Cobra to defeat Havoc's enemies, Kira faces her true test, a duel with Cobra to determine who's worthy of the Black Dragon. Cobra's undisciplined fighting leaves him vulnerable, allowing Kira to outmaneuver and ultimately defeat him. This victory not only proves her superiority to Cabal, but also earns her the honor of recruiting and testing future members of the clan. Kira's triumph is less about brute strength and more about her ability to exploit weaknesses and maintain composure, a testament to her calculated approach to survival and ambition within the brutal hierarchy of the Black Dragon. Overall, Kira is characterized by her resilience, tactical mind, and willingness to do whatever it takes to survive and rise within the ranks of one of Mortal Kombat's most notorious criminal organizations. Her journey from a lone arms dealer to a trusted lieutenant of Kabal highlights her adaptability and the danger of understanding her, even in a world filled with supernatural threats and ruthless killers.
Once they had defeated the enemies of Havoc, Kabal complimented Cobra and Kira on their ferocity in battle. Their true test, however, was to face each other, to decide which of them was worthy of the new Black Dragon clan. Neither refused the challenge. Cobra fought with ferocity, but his lack of discipline allowed Kira to control the battle, easily manipulating Cobra into exposing himself to her attacks. She defeated him and proved her worth to Kabal, who gave her the honor of finding 2 more recruits to pit against each other in Mortal Kombat.
Now we turn our attention to Cobra. He is a character who epitomizes raw aggression and bloodlust, standing out as a martial artist who abandoned any prestige of honor for the thrill of real violence. Originally a skilled fighter from New York, Cobra grew disillusioned with the limitations and rules of traditional martial arts, craving the authenticity and adrenaline of life-or-death combat. Seeking to test his skills beyond the confines of the dojo, he began fighting street gangs, and soon the excitement of these encounters escalated into outright brutality and deletions. Cobra's descent into savagery was rapid. He started eliminating not just for survival, but for pleasure, eventually turning to robbery and violence until his arrest by the police. His criminal path took a new direction when Kabal and Kira, leaders of the newly reformed Black Dragon clan, broke him out of custody and offered him a place among the ranks. For Cobra, the Black Dragon represented the perfect environment, a lawless brotherhood where his violent tendencies were not only accepted but encouraged. Cobra's ending in deception encapsulates his character's essence. During the siege against the Dragon King, Cobra grows impatient, eager to join the battle and unleash his fury. Kabal, however, restrains him until the heroes have defeated Onaga. Only then does Kabal give the order to the Black Dragon to attack the weakened visitors, resulting in a massacre with no survivors. In this moment, Cobra realizes the Black Dragon is a perfect outlet for his bloodlust and that he truly belongs amongst his ranks. The ending highlights Cobra's lack of moral compass and his delight in violence for his own sake. He's not driven by loyalty, ideology, or ambition, but by the sheer thrill of combat and killing.
Kabal brought his new recruits to Outworld, where a siege was underway against the Dragon King. Cobra grew impatient. He wanted to join the fray, but Kabal held him back. They were not to attack until the heroes had won. Once the Dragon King had been defeated, Kabal gave the order to strike the victors. The new Black Dragon tore through their ranks and left no survivors. Cobra came to realize that he was going to like being a Black Dragon.
The last new character to cover is the big bad of this game, Onaga. Known as the Dragon King, he is one of the most formidable and mythic antagonists in the Mortal Kombat universe. As Outworld's original ruler and mentor to Shao Kahn, Onaga is characterized by his immense power, strategic mind, and insatiable ambition for conquest and immortality. His reign was marked by the creation of an unbeatable army, made invincible by his unique ability to resurrect the dead, a power tied to his own heart, which made him nearly impossible to overthrow in battle. Onaga's pursuit of eternal life led him to seek the blood of an infant dragon, believing it would grant him true immortality. But his plans were cut short when Shao Kahn, his trusted advisor, betrayed and poisoned him, seizing the throne for himself. Despite his death, Onaga's influence endured for millennia. His spirit remained active, manipulating the events from beyond the grave. In deception, he orchestrates his resurrection by deceiving Shujinko to collect the Kami Dogu. Onaga returns in a monstrous dragon-like form, swiftly defeating powerful adversaries, including the deadly alliance of Shang Tsung and Quan Chi, and even the Thunder God himself, Raiden. With the Kami Dogu and Shinnok's amulet in possession, Onaga's goal is to merge the realms and rule them with his resurrected army, presenting a threat that unites both heroes and villains against him. Now let's jump right into the returning characters, starting with Baraka. His character is defined by his ferocity, cunning, and the perpetual struggle of his people in Outworld. In Deception, Baraka finds renewed purpose under Onaga, whose apparent invincibility inspires Baraka's loyalty. He becomes a key player in Onaga's plans of freeing Melina and using her to mislead the Dragon King's enemies. Yet, when Melina's betrayal leads to the dissemination of his forces, Baraka's cunning comes to the force. His ending reveals a leader who has learned from a lifetime of treachery. Suspecting a trap, he sends a decoy to meet Melina, then uses his keen Tarkatan senses to ambush and destroy her himself. This act is not just vengeance, it's survival, a demonstration of Baraka's ability to adapt and outmaneuver even those closest to him.
Baraka assumed that the treacherous Melina had given her armies a powerful magic. They fought with savage brutality, but he could not stop their advance. He vowed that Melina would pay for her betrayal. Baraka's warriors brought word that she had agreed to meet with him in an ancient lair, but Baraka was no fool. He sent another in his place. Baraka's scouts reported that the Earthrealm warrior Sub-Zero was near. He allowed his remaining militia to deal with him and set off alone to ambush Melina. He knew by the scent of Tarkatan blood on her clothes that she had already killed the one he had sent to meet her. But her sense of smell was not as keen as a true Tarkata's. She was unaware of Baraka's presence. He barked her name, and when she turned to face him, he tore her apart.
Now on to the drunken master, Bo Rai Cho. He stands out as a masterful, unconventional mentor whose presence is marked by both comic relief and genuine heroism. Originating from Outworld, Bo Rai Cho never participated directly in Mortal Kombat tournaments due to his Outworld heritage, but his influence is deeply felt throughout the warriors he trained, most notably Liu Kang, Earthrealm's greatest champion. Despite his rotund, often inebriated appearance and fighting style centered on the drunken fist, Bo Rai Cho is a formidable martial artist and a wise, compassionate teacher who has shaped the destiny of both Outworld and Earthrealm. His journey to deception is defined by his commitment to nurturing potential in others and his willingness to risk his own safety for the greater good. In the events leading up to deception, Bo Rai Cho demonstrates his courage and resourcefulness by infiltrating Shang Tsung's palace to rescue Li Mei from Deadly Alliance, evading Baraka's Tarkatan warriors and ensuring her safety even as chaos erupts around them. Bo Rai Cho's deception ending reveals a character who, despite moments of doubt, finds renewed purpose throughout the legacy of his teachings. And the realm's defenders faltered, and Bo Rai Cho was nearly overcome by despair. It was the spirit of his greatest student Liu Kang who inspired him to persevere. Invigorated by his encounter, Bo Rai Cho united Outworld's fractured leaders and with Kitana's blessing took command of her remaining army. His leadership and martial prowess led to the defeat of Baraka's Tarkatan horde and Baraka himself, sparking a rebellion against the Dragon King and giving Outworld's people hope for liberation. Bo Rai Cho's character is defined by humility, resilience, and a deep sense of responsibility.
Onaga seemed invincible. The races of Outworld were in disagreement over how to deal with this threat, and Baraka's hordes were sweeping the land. Bo Rai Cho had almost given up hope when he was visited by the spirit of his greatest student, Liu Kang. Their roles now reversed. Liu Kang gave Bo Rai Cho the inspiration necessary to continue the fight. Bo Rai Cho's soul was invigorated. He met with Outworld's many leaders to forge a temporary truce. Kitana gave him command of what remained of her army, and he led them to battle against Baraka's mutant foot soldiers. The new army of Outworld crushed the Tarkata vermin, and Baraka himself was bested by Bo Rai Cho's attack. The victory inspired the people of Outworld to rise up against the Dragon King.
Now let's talk about the many souls in one man, Ermac. Originally introduced as an amalgamation of thousands of souls fused together by Shao Kahn's dark sorcery, Ermac began his existence as a loyal and fearsome servant, carrying out the Emperor's will with unquestioning obedience. His telekinetic powers and spectral presence made him a formidable opponent, but his individuality was suppressed by his collective consciousness, which was bound to Shao Kahn's commands. The turning point in Ermac's journey comes when Kenshi, an Earthrealm warrior, intervenes. Sensing the torment and suffering within Ermac, Kenshi uses his own telekinetic abilities to sever the mystical tether that binds Ermac to Shao Kahn. This act of compassion grants Ermac self-awareness and free will for the first time. No longer a mere weapon, Ermac is awakened to the reality of the atrocities he committed under Khan's rule and is driven by a desire to atone for these past sins. This transformation is pivotal. Ermac shifts from villain to reluctant hero, seeking out others who understand his pain and striving to use his formidable powers for good. In Deception, Ermac's newfound autonomy is put to the test. He encounters Liu Kang, another warrior spirit, and joins the fight to free Liu Kang's allies from the control of the Dragon King. This alliance is not only a quest for redemption, but also a testament to Ermac's ability to emphasize and act selflessly. His bio underscores his transformation when he says he is now free to choose his own destiny. He is no longer defined by servitude. Ermac actively seeks to make amends and shape a better future for the realms. Ermac's Deception ending is a culmination of his redemption arc. In the heat of Onaga's reign, Ermac battles Liu Kang's enslaved comrades, not with the intent to destroy, but to buy time for their liberation. His skills prove more than a match for the group, and with Liu Kang's intervention, the heroes are freed from Onaga's control. For the first time, Ermac finds satisfaction in using his power to achieve a noble outcome, though he remains wary of deeper, unseen threats manipulating the realms. This moment of triumph is tinged with foreboding, reflecting Ermac's wisdom, the lingering burden of his past.
In an outer chamber of the Dragon King's throne room, Ermac did battle with Liu Kang's enslaved comrades. Ermac was more than a match for the 5 warriors, but their defeat was not his objective. Liu Kang materialized and one by one freed their souls while Ermac occupied the rest. Eventually, all 5 were awakened from their enchantment and freed from Onaga's control. Ermac was pleased that his warrior's skills could for once bring about a noble outcome. He sensed, however, that an ominous force still shaped the destiny of the realms. It was everywhere. He could feel its influence on Onaga, though the Dragon King was oblivious to its manipulation. Time was running out. Ermac feared the celebration of this latest victory would be short-lived.
Now we're in Edenia with Jade. She was raised in the court of Outworld and trained to serve as Kitana's bodyguard. Her first major character struggle was a choice between allegiance to her emperor and her lifelong bond with Kitana. Ultimately, Jade's loyalty to Kitana and, by extension, to Edenia and Queen Sindel proved stronger than her duty to Shao Kahn, setting the tone for her actions throughout the series. Jade's journey is consistently shaped by her devotion to those she cares about, particularly Kitana. In earlier games, she risked her life even to help Kitana escape Shao Kahn's wrath and played a crucial role in freeing Sindel from mind control. By the time of Deception, Jade emerges as a stealthy, pragmatic, and intelligent warrior, willing to take significant risks for the greater good. When she arrives too late to save Kitana and the Earthrealm heroes from the Deadly Alliance, she witnesses their resurrection under Onaga's control. Undentured, Jade follows the Dragon King forces and discovers Queen Sindel's imprisonment and takes decisive action, defeating a mind-controlled Kitana to free Sindel and facilitate their escape from Edenia. Jade's rivalry with Tanya, a betrayer of Edenia, further highlights her defining trait, loyalty. Where Tanya repeatedly sides with those who threaten Edenia, Jade's patriotism and sense of justice drive her to seek retribution. Her Deception bio and ending showcases her strength. She allows herself to be captured by Baraka's forces, only to use the opportunity to ambush Tanya with a clever ruse, ensuring Tanya's brutal demise at the hands of the Tarkatans. This act is not just vengeance, but a calculated move to protect her realm and settle the scores with a traitor.
The traitor Tanya had given the Dragon King the information he needed to finish merging the Kamidogu. But before he conquered all the realms, Jade would see Tanya dead. Jade had allowed Baraka's soldiers to capture her, feigning defeat in battle. As Tanya approached her prisoner, Jade waited for the right moment and threw a glass orb filled with concentrated Tarkata essence at her. The glass broke, splashing its contents across Tanya's body. Baraka and his vile savages worked themselves into an uncontrolled frenzy. They perceived Tanya to be a rival male and instinctively attacked. I doubt she survived the encounter.
Now let's move on to the Black Dragon with Kabal. By the events of Deception, Kabal is no longer running from his past, but fully embracing it. He leads a new generation of Black Dragon recruits, testing their loyalty and strength in the crucible of Outworld's chaos. Cabal's leadership is pragmatic and brutal. He seeks to weed out the weak and restore the Black Dragon's reputation as a force to be feared. His bio reflects this hardened resolve, no longer denying his devotion to the clan. He's driven by ambition and willingness to use violence and cunning to achieve his goals. Cabal's deception ending encapsulates his ruthless pragmatism and opportunism. Tasked by Havoc to distract the heroes while Havoc retrieves Onaga's heart, Cabal ultimately betrays his benefactor, eliminating Havoc and claiming the heart's power for himself. This act is both a testament to Cabal's cunning and return to the Black Dragon's cutthroat ethos. He is willing to use and discard allies if it means securing power and survival for himself and his clan.
Havoc had given Cabal's new Black Dragon recruits a task: lure the heroes away from the Dragon King's corpse while he somehow retrieved the heart, and with it, Onaga's power to raise the dead. Apparently, Onaga's ancient army had only been invincible by means of constant resurrection during battles. The power to raise the dead would prove quite useful to the Black Dragon clan. Cabal slew Havoc and took the Dragon King's heart for himself. Havoc was most impressed.
Now let's talk about the blind swordsman with Kenshi. By the time of Deception, Kenshi's motivations had shifted from personal vengeance to a broader sense of duty. With the souls of his ancestors returned to his sword and Shang Tsung believed to be eliminated, Kenshi allied with Sub-Zero to find a way back to Earthrealm. Their alliance was marked by camaraderie and trust as they protected each other from threats like Hotaru. Kenshi's spiritual sight allowed him to overcome Hotaru's blinding attack and save Sub-Zero, demonstrating his adaptability and the unique advantages of his condition. Kenshi's ending in Deception reinforces his growth as a warrior who uses his abilities for the greater good. When Hotaru attacks, Kenshi's spiritual sense gives him the upper hand, allowing him to defeat the Zealot and protect his ally. This victory is not just a testament to Kenshi's skill, but also to his evolution from a self-serving fighter to a protector and team player, capable of overcoming adversity through both strength and wisdom.
As Sub-Zero and Kenshi trekked across Outworld, they strove to keep themselves hidden, only traveling at night. But as they neared the portal to Earthrealm, the Dragon King Zealot Hotaru attacked with a blast of glowing energy that temporarily blinded Sub-Zero. Kenshi's sense of sight is of a spiritual nature, thus he was unaffected by the intense flash of Hotaru's projectile attack. In the dark, Kenshi had the advantage. Hotaru did not see his approach. Unaware, he strode in to kill Sub-Zero. It was the last mistake he would ever make.
Now let's talk about Li Mei. Her character arc is one of hope, resilience, and ultimately tragic corruption. Introduced in Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, Li Mei is an Outworld villager who enters the Deadly Alliance's tournament with the noble goal of winning her town's freedom from enslavement. Her initial characterization is that of a courageous and selfless fighter, willing to risk her life for her people despite being outmatched by the sinister forces of Shang Tsung and Quan Chi. Li Mei's early journey is marked by being naive. She believes in the promise of liberation, only to learn that the tournament is a ruse, and her victory would have meant her soul's imprisonment within one of Onaga's undead warriors, dooming her to serve evil forever. Her fate takes a pivotal turn when Master Bo' Rai Cho intervenes, rescuing her soul and nursing her back to health. This experience, however, leaves a lasting mark. The brief time her soul spent with the Dragon King's ancient warrior corpse changes her, instilling a sense of unease and a strange attraction to the dark power now rising in Outworld. Under Bo' Rai Cho's mentorship, Li Mei becomes a more skilled and determined fighter, feeling a renewed sense of duty to Outworld, but also wrestling with the lingering effects of her near possession. This internal conflict becomes a defining aspect of her character. She is torn between her ideals and a growing fascination with power. In Deception, Li Mei's struggle reaches its climax. Initially, she joins an alliance of heroes seeking to defeat Onaga, but as she draws closer to the Dragon King, her resolve falters. The influence of her past ordeal and Onaga's overwhelming presence sway her allegiance. In her ending, Li Mei betrays her allies, buying Onaga the time needed to merge the Kamidogu and achieve ultimate power. As a reward for her treachery, Onaga transforms her into his queen, granting her unimaginable power and a place at his side as they prepare to rule the One Realm and destroy the Elder Gods. This ending marks a tragic fall from grace. Li Mei, once a symbol of hope and resistance, succumbs to the very darkness she sought to oppose.
An alliance had been formed of warriors from vastly different origins, but with a similar goal: to defeat Onaga. Li Mei marched uneasily into battle against the Dragon King. The closer she got to him, the more she came to understand which side was truly deserving of victory. Li Mei turned on her former allies and gave her emperor the time he needed to finish merging the Kamidogu. The Dragon King was now all-powerful. He had the means to control the universe, to make and unmake as he saw fit. Li Mei watched in delight as the Elder Gods fled before his might. Onaga then transformed her into his queen, to be forever at his side. He had given her power beyond anything she ever imagined. Together, they will rule the One Realm and slay the last of the Elder Gods.
Now let's talk about Earthrealm's champion, Liu Kang. The events leading to Deception represent Liu Kang's darkest chapter. Eliminated by Shang Tsung, his soul was trapped and tormented within the Sorcerer, until Raiden's sacrifice against Onaga freed him. Yet, even in death, Liu Kang's commitment to his friends and Earthrealm endured. He chose to remain in Outworld as a spirit, aiding his allies against the Dragon King. Meanwhile, his physical body was reanimated by an unknown force, becoming a mindless zombie. A source of deep anguish for Liu Kang, who felt responsible for the atrocities committed by his corpse, despite having no control over it. This split between mind and body introduced a new internal struggle, forcing Liu Kang to confront the chaos his absence had wrought and the legacy he left behind. In his Deception ending, Liu Kang's journey comes full circle. After Onaga's defeat and the liberation of his friends, he faces the final battle against his own reanimated body. The struggle is fierce and eventually matched, but a surge of energy reunites Liu Kang's soul with his body, restoring him to life as a protector of Earthrealm and champion of Mortal Kombat. This resurrection is not just a physical return, but a reaffirmation of his role in the series, his moral center and indomitable hero.
Liu Kang's friends had been freed, Onaga had been defeated, and the realms were secure once more. But there was one battle that remained. Liu Kang's body had been used by some unknown force as a tool of destruction. It had left death in its wake and needed to be stopped. The chaos would end in Earthrealm. The fight raged with neither combatant able to best the other, when a jolt of energy crackled through them both. Liu Kang's nerves blazed like fire, and he felt a rush of air fill his lungs for the first time since his death. He was Liu Kang once more, protector of Earthrealm, champion of Mortal Kombat.
Now let's get into Mileena. Imprisoned by Kitana after Shinnok's invasion, Mileena's rage and longing for revenge only intensified. When Baraka frees her during the events of Deception, she seizes the opportunity to serve the Dragon King, both to gain power and finally enact revenge on Kitana. Disguised as her sister, Mileena manipulates Edenian armies and Outworld's alliances, demonstrating cunning and ambition that rival her malice. Her ability to conceal her Tarkatan features with a veil allows her to assume Kitana's identity, and she is able to command loyalty and authority, if only through deception and violence. Mileena's Deception ending encapsulates her tragic ambition and ruthless pragmatism. After successfully deceiving her enemies and gaining control of the combined Edenian and Outworld armies, she realizes she has achieved her true purpose, circulating Kitana and wielding real power. Yet her reign is precarious. As long as Baraka knows the truth, her secrets is threatened. In the final act of betrayal, she lures Baraka to his death to secure her position, fully embracing her role as the false princess. All hail Princess Kitana. This moment is both triumph and tragedy. Mileena attains the power and recognition she craves, but only through lies, murder, and the erasure of her own identity.
Because it was widely believed that Princess Kitana had slain her many years ago, none were suspicious of the veil Mileena wore to conceal her Tarkatan features. It was not difficult for her to assume the identity of the princess and take control of her alliance. To further conceal her deception, Mileena gave command of the armies to Boraicho and instructed him to lead the attack against Baraka's diversionary forces. Baraka's militia had failed to divert the enemy, and to her surprise, was decimated by Boraicho's forces. She then realized that she was in control of the most powerful military force in Outworld and Edenia combined. She had finally achieved her true purpose, her destiny. But Mileena could not continue her charade indefinitely, not as long as Baraka knew the truth. She ambushed him in the ancient beetle lair and fed him to a swarm of flesh-eating insects. All hail, Princess Kitana.
Now let's jump into the shaman himself, Nightwolf. In Deception, Nightwolf faces his greatest test when he is plagued by visions of a dark presence, the resurrection of the Dragon King. Recognizing the threat Onaga poses to all realms, Nightwolf chooses a path of immense personal sacrifice. He performs the Sin Eater ritual, absorbing the accumulated sins of his tribe into himself. This act corrupts his own soul, allowing him to enter the Netherrealm, a place normally inaccessible to the pure heart, so he can confront Onaga directly. Nightwolf is acutely aware that this corruption makes him dangerous, even to those he loves, so he exiles himself, embracing isolation as a necessary evil to save the realms. Nightwolf's journey throughout the Netherrealm is marked by both physical and spiritual trials. He battles demons and draws on the knowledge passed down from his forefathers to prepare a mystical trap for Onaga. In his ending, Nightwolf succeeds in binding Onaga's spirit to the Netherrealm by releasing the sins he had absorbed, using their weight as a metaphysical anchor. This act not only neutralizes the Dragon King, but also frees Nightwolf from the corruption he had bore, expelling him from the Netherrealm and leaving his fate open, but his soul cleansed.
Nightwolf had traversed realms and fought many demons to get to this place deep within the Netherrealm. Using knowledge passed to him from his forefathers, he drew a binding symbol on the ground and chanted the ancient words that would draw the spirit of the Dragon King to this wicked place. Nightwolf had carried the burden long enough. He released the sins of his people into the mystic symbol, and their weight bound Onaga to the Netherrealm. Free of the corruption he had harbored for so long, Nightwolf was expelled from the depths of the Netherrealm and into the unknown.
Now let's get into the team up we were not expecting. Noob, Smoke. These two characters help bring Mortal Kombat mythologies full circle. Let's look at their formation. After years of serving under Shao Kahn, Quan Chi, and Shinnok, Noob Saibot finds himself finally free of all masters and able to pursue his own ambitions. Seeking power and independence, he sets his sights on Outworld, determined to build a legion of assassins loyal to himself. In Shao Kahn's abandoned fortress, he discovers the deactivated cyborg ninja Smoke, who had been left as a war trophy since the invasion of Earthrealm. Noob Saibot reactivates Smoke's nanotechnology, reshaping and repairing his artificial body and reprogramming him to serve without question, erasing any remaining autonomy Smoke might have had. In the Deception ending, Noob and Smoke are confronted by someone from their shared past, Sub-Zero, Noob Saibot's younger brother. Smoke initially recognizes Sub-Zero, recalling their history as friends and allies. Noob, however, is unmoved, his soul tainted by death, and the Netherrealm is devoid of compassion. He orders Smoke to help him slay his own brother, marking his first act as ruler of the Netherrealm. This confrontation brings Mortal Kombat mythologies full circle. The first Sub-Zero who is champion of the Lin Kuei has become Noob Saibot, a villain seeking to destroy his own blood. Smoke, once a victim of the Lin Kuei Cyber Initiative, is once again forced to turn against those he once called friend. Their encounter with Sub-Zero is a powerful echo of the franchise's earliest stories: brotherhood, betrayal, and the tragic consequence of power and transformation.
With Smoke as his template, Noob Saibot planned to return to the Netherrealm and use Smoke's nanotechnology to create an army of cyborg demons. He was unaware that they were followed by someone Noob had not seen since before he became a Wraith. Smoke instantly recognized their visitor. He was an echo of their past. He was Sub-Zero, Noob Saibot's brother. Noob Saibot was surprised to see how much stronger his brother had become. If he were still Lin Kuei, still human, he would probably have shown some degree of pride. But as Raiden had revealed during the ordeal with Shinnok's amulet, his soul had been tainted when he died at the hand of Scorpion. Noob Saibot, the original Sub-Zero, had descended into the Netherrealm free from compassion. He ordered Smoke to assist him in slaying his brother, his first act as ruler of the Netherrealm.
Now, let's get into Raiden. During the events leading to Deception, Raiden faces his greatest defeat. Despite his warnings and efforts, the Deadly Alliance of Shang Tsung and Quan Chi succeeds in eliminating Earthrealm's champions and resurrecting the Dragon King. In a last desperate act, Raiden unleashes his full godly essence in an attempt to destroy Onaga and the Sorcerers, resulting in a massive explosion. While the Deadly Alliance is destroyed, Onaga survives unscathed, and Raiden's sacrifice appears futile. Raiden's essence eventually reforms the Earthrealm, but the experience leaves him changed. The trauma of failure and the influence of Onaga's dark power corrupt his spirit, transforming him into a darker, more ruthless version of himself, often referred to as Dark Raiden. No longer the patient mentor, Raiden becomes disgusted with mortals, blaming their vanity and folly, especially Shujinko, for Onaga's return. He resolves that Earthrealm's fate will no longer be left to the whims of humanity. Instead, he will rule with the Iron Hand, instilling fear rather than hope. His deception ending cements his transformation. Raiden's patience for mortals is gone. He vows to punish anyone who endangers Earthrealm, regardless of their intentions. Shujinko's role in unleashing Onaga is irrelevant to Raiden. Even though Shujinko ultimately defeats the Dragon King, Raiden's new philosophy is absolute. Those who threaten Earthrealm will pay with their lives, signaling a shift from protector to uncompromising enforcer.
My patience for mortals has worn thin. If I am to protect Earthrealm, I must punish those who would threaten it. The fool Shujinko had let himself be deceived into believing that he worked for a greater good. He was in fact an unknowing tool of a greater evil, one that had almost caused the destruction of Earthrealm. That Shujinko undid his mistake and destroyed the Dragon King is of no importance. Those who place Earthrealm in harm's way will pay with their lives.
Now let's talk about vengeance with Scorpion. For much of the Mortal Kombat saga, Scorpion's motivations are singular: vengeance. He's wrathful, relentless, and largely indifferent to the fate of the realms, seeking only retribution against those he believes wronged him. By the events of Deception, Scorpion's path takes a dramatic turn. In his pursuit of Quan Chi, he is ambushed and cast into a Soulnado, only escaping by entering the Void, where he encounters the Elder Gods themselves. Witnessing the rise of Onaga and the death of Raiden, Scorpion is transformed by the Elder Gods to their champion, tasked with stopping the Dragon King from merging the realms, a mission that elevates him from a personal agent of vengeance to a cosmic enforcer. This new role fundamentally changes Scorpion. No longer driven solely by a personal vendetta, he becomes the Elder God's weapon, imbued with enhanced powers and a sense of purpose beyond his own pain. In his ending, Scorpion tirelessly hunts Onaga across the realms, overcoming all obstacles and allies of the Dragon King. Ultimately, he's recognized as the true champion of the Elder Gods, the only one capable of stopping the threat to all of existence.
The Elder Gods had transformed Scorpion into their weapon in order to defeat the Dragon King before his plans of domination unmade the realms. With his enhanced abilities, he tirelessly tracked Onaga through the realms until finally he cornered him in the Nexus. The Dragon King had many allies, but they were of no consequence. It was in fact Scorpion who was the true champion of the Elder Gods, the enforcer of their will. Only he could stop the menace that threatened all that exists. Only he could defeat the Dragon King.
Now let's talk Sindel. By the time of Deception, Sindel once again finds herself a prisoner, this time at the hand of the Dragon King, with her daughter Kitana enslaved as her jailer. Her bio reveals her refusal to fight Kitana even for her own freedom, underscoring her compassion and the emotional complexity of her maternal bond. It is Jade, her loyal ally who ultimately enables their escape, highlighting Sindel's ability to inspire loyalty and friendship among Edenia's defenders. Sindel's narrative and deception is marked by her proactive search for knowledge and solutions. She and Jade investigate Onaga's motives, fearing that ancient Edenian secrets left behind Shao Kahn could spell disaster if uncovered. These investigative and protective instincts show Sindel's growth from a victim of circumstance to a queen taking responsibility for her realm's fate. Her ending in deception is a testament to her courage and resourcefulness, discovering an ancient incantation meant to return Onaga's soul to its original body. Sindel acts decisively. When Onaga unleashes Katana against them, Sindel and Jade work together. Jade restrains Katana while Sindel drives her Quan Dao into Onaga's corpse and recites the spell, trapping Onaga's soul and preventing his resurrection. This act not only defeats the Dragon King, but also frees Katana from his control and restores peace to Edenia. Now let's talk Lin Kuei with Sub-Zero. In Deception, Sub-Zero's arc is driven by his relationship with his former apprentice, Frost. After she betrays him and is consumed by the uncontrollable power of the Dragon Medallion, Sub-Zero searches Outworld for a suitable resting place for her. This quest leads him to ancient ruins belonging to a lost race of chiromancers, people who, like him, possess mastery over ice. Through study, he realizes that both he and Frost are likely descendants of this forgotten civilization. This discovery deepens his sense of identity and purpose, and he honors Frost by entombing her in the ancestral catacombs before donning the armor of his heritage, symbolizing his acceptance of his legacy and newfound strength. Sub-Zero's Deception's ending further highlights his resilience and heroism. Ambushed by Tarkatan warriors in the Living Forest, he is quickly surrounded and faces certain death, refusing to surrender. He resolves to fight to the end, determined to take down as many foes as possible. In this moment, his new armor, representing his chiromancer ancestry, speaks to him, guiding him and empowering his every move. With his aid, he crushes his enemies, embodying the spirit of a true warrior who draws strength from his heritage, even in the face of overwhelming odds. The dying words of a Tarkatan, "Long live the Dragon King," remind Sub-Zero that the battle for Outworld's future is far from over.
On his way to the rendezvous point with Raiden and the others, Sub-Zero was ambushed by a band of Tarkatan warriors in the Living Forest. He tried to outrun them, but there were too many. He was quickly surrounded. Sub-Zero decided that his last living deed would be to vanquish as many of these barbarians as he could before he succumbed to death. As Sub-Zero began his attack, he felt his armor speak to him. It guided and strengthened each blow as he broke their limbs and crushed their skulls. At his feet, a dying Tarkatan warrior uttered the words, "Long live the Dragon King."
Speaking of deception, let's talk about Tanya. Tanya's bio in Deception highlights her adaptability and self-preservation. She describes herself not as an enforcer, but as an ambassador, preferring to see her role as one of diplomatic manipulation rather than brute force. Her service to the deadly alliance of Quan Chi and Shang Tsung was motivated by necessity. and when their rule collapsed, she was quick to seek new allegiances. When confronted by Baraka and given a choice between death and service to Onaga, Tanya chooses the latter without hesitation, a pattern seen throughout her history. She survives by making the right decisions, even if it means betraying her homeland or former allies. In Deception, Tanya becomes instrumental in Onaga's quest for ultimate power. She guides the Dragon King to Edenia, believing that ancient texts there could contain the secrets to fusing the Kamidogu, powerful relics from the Elder Gods, into a single artifact. Her knowledge and willingness to betray Edenia for personal gain showcase her as a master manipulator, always seeking to align herself with the winning side. Tanya's ending in Deception is a culmination of her ambition and treacherous spirit. After helping Onaga obtain the one Kamidogu, she seizes a moment of distraction to steal the artifact for herself, destroying the Dragon King and ascending to godlike power as the ultimate overlord of the realms. This act is classic Tanya. She is never content to remain servant and will betray even the most powerful allies if it means claiming greater power for herself.
In Edenia, Tanya had located the ancient texts that described the process by which to fuse the Kamidogu into one. With this information, Onaga was able to create the one Kamidogu, a tool of unspeakable power. As the Dragon King was distracted, reveling in his victory, Tanya seized the opportunity to snatch the Kamidogu from him, thereby obtaining godlike power. She destroyed the Dragon King and became ultimate overlord of the realms.
While that was every character in the original release of Deception, we need to address the extra characters that was added in the GameCube and PSP version. Let's start with Goro. His story in Deception begins with him allied to Kitana's army, fighting alongside Edenia and the Shokin to overthrow Shao Kahn. However, Goro's fate takes a dark turn when he is ambushed by Noob Saibot and left for dead on the battlefield. In a twist, he is discovered and revived by Shao Kahn himself, who promises the Shokin favor status and the banishment of their rivals, the Centaurs, in exchange for Goro's renewed loyalty. Motivated by the prospect of restoring his people's glory and securing their future, Goro accepts, demonstrating both his pragmatism and his willingness to ship alliances for the greater good of the Shokin. Reinvigorated and now leading the Shokin army once more, Goro sets out to cleanse our world of the Dragon King's Tarkatan horde. His leadership inspires the Shokin, who, emboldened by the promise of Shao Kahn's favor, decisively crush Baraka's forces. Goro's martial prowess and strategic acumen are on full display as he reasserts the dominance of the Shokin in our world's volatile power struggle. Goro's ending in Deception marks a return to his roots, a ruthless enforcer for our world's emperor. With the Edenian military defeated and Kitana captured, Goro delivers her to Shao Kahn as a sacrificial offering, a burial gesture of loyalty, and to the one and future emperor. This act underscores Goro's willingness to commit atrocities in the name of political alliance and personal ambition, and it signals a definitive break from the more nuanced and heroic portrayals he received in previous games.
Goro had regained control of his Shokan army and fought to cleanse Outworld of the Dragon King's Tarkatan horde. Though the Tarkata are formidable adversaries, they were no match for an army of Shokan, inspired as they were by regaining Shao Kahn's favor. Baraka's troops were quickly defeated. Goro had proven himself a powerful ally of the Emperor, but Shao Kahn had given the Shokan much in his return to power. Goro felt a gift of loyalty was in order. The Edenian military had been crushed and Kitana herself had been captured. Goro brought her before Shao Kahn and sacrificed her as an offering of fealty to the once and future Emperor of Outworld.
Now let's get into Shao Kahn. After his defeat by Earthrealm warriors, Shao Kahn's power in Outworld waned, and he faced intimate overthrow by Kitana's forces. Demonstrating his cunning, Kitana used a magical artifact to create a clone, sacrificing it as a decoy while he escaped into hiding to recover his strength. This move not only preserved his life, but also allowed him to regroup and plan his return, highlighting his survival instincts and strategic mind. In his Deception ending, Shao Kahn, restored to full strength, joins Goro to storm Onaga's throne room. Recognizing that brute force alone is insufficient, Kahn uses his trademark treachery, blasting Onaga with his warhammer and orchestrating his fall onto Goro's poison blades. With Onaga defeated, Kahn reclaims Outworld, unleashing the Shokin army to decimate Kitana's forces and the Tarkatan horde, scattering their survivors and ushering a new era of his rule. This act of betrayal and calculated violence is the embleem of Kahn's reign. Power is seized and maintained through strength, cunning, not honor.
Shao Kahn had regained his strength, and he and Goro marched boldly to the Dragon King's throne room, slaying all who stood in their way. Like an echo of their battle ages ago, Shao Kahn and Onaga fought with a fury fueled by intense hatred. Knowing the Dragon King was too powerful to defeat in mere combat, Shao Kahn blasted Onaga with his warhammer, causing him to hurtle into Goro's poisoned blades. Onaga had fallen victim to Shao Kahn's treachery once more. With Onaga defeated, Shao Kahn reclaimed Outworld once again. His army of Shokan decimated what remained of Kitana's armies and the Tarkatan horde and scattered their survivors into the unknown. A new era had begun in the realm of Outworld. Long live Emperor Shao Kahn.
Now let's get into the exclusive PSP characters of Mortal Kombat Unchained, starting with Blaze. In Deception, Blaze's presence is subtle but crucial. He's not a central character in the ongoing battles, but rather a cosmic observer and catalyst, asserting the balance of power does not tip into chaos. His bio reveals his awareness of a premature awakening of one of the Edenian brothers, suggesting that the events leading to the next game are already in motion. Blaze's ending in Deception sets the stage for the series' next era. Having completed his first duty sounding the call, he prepares for the second, luring the combatants to the final battle, where they will challenge him in hopes of seizing godlike power. However, Blaze's narrative warns that the arrogance of these warriors will be their undoing.
Blaze had completed the first of his duties. Soon he will begin the second, to lure warriors to the final battle. There they will challenge him, hoping to attain godlike power from his defeat. The arrogance of these warriors will be their downfall, for only a son of Edenia can unleash the true purpose of Blaze.
Now, let's talk about Frost. Frost's narrative in Deception centers around her attempt to overthrow Sub-Zero as the leader of the Lin Kuei, believing that the Dragon Medallion, an artifact that amplifies Chiromancer's abilities, was the source of Sub-Zero's power she stole at the first opportunity. Frost's motivation was rooted in jealousy and the belief that she was more deserving of leadership than Sub-Zero, whom she saw as an obstacle rather than a mentor. However, her lack of discipline and humility proved her undoing. The medallion's power overwhelmed her, causing her own freezing abilities to spiral out of control and leaving her incapacitated and entombed among frozen corpses in Outworld. After awakening in the tomb, Frost's obsession with vengeance intensified. She blamed Sub-Zero for her predicament, convinced that he had abandoned her and stolen back the medallion. Instead of reflecting on her own actions, she fixated on revenge, returning to the Lin Kuei Temple in Earthrealm to await Sub-Zero's return. Her fixation grew into paranoia and delirium. Unable to distinguish reality, she began slaughtering her own clan members, seeing Sub-Zero's face in every Lin Kuei warrior. Sub-Zero eventually returned to find many of his clan dead at Frost's hands. Realizing that she had lost her touch with reality, he subdued her by freezing her in a block of ice, placing her in the chamber of fallen Lin Kuei, and sealing her away until she could be cured of her madness. This act was both merciful and necessary. Sub-Zero hoped she could one day recover, but she would have to answer for her crimes against the Lin Kuei when that day would come.
Sub-Zero returned to Earthrealm only to find many of his clans slain by Frost. She had come back to the Lin Kuei Temple with the intention of killing only him, but she was now delirious and saw Sub-Zero everywhere. Sub-Zero blasted her with intense cold, freezing her until she could be revived and cured of her dementia. He laid her on an altar in the chamber of fallen Lin Kuei and sealed the room with a wall of ice. Frost will one day recover. When that day comes, she will have to answer for her crimes against the Lin Kuei.
Now let's talk about Kitana. By the events of deception, Kitana has endured betrayal, death, and resurrection. After being eliminated in the previous game, she's resurrected and enslaved by Onaga, forced to serve as his puppet and even to fight against her own mother. This period of enslavement is traumatic, but it grants Kitana unique insight while under Onaga's control. She shares his thoughts and learns his secrets of invulnerability, the 6 Kamidogo objects that shield him from harm. Even as a puppet, Kitana's will and intellect still persist, and she resolves to use this knowledge to help defeat Onaga for the sake of Edenia in all realms. Kitana is eventually freed from Onaga's control by the intervention of Liu Kang's spirit and Ermac, who liberate her and the enslaved heroes. However, her ordeal leaves her weary. In her ending after the Dragon King's defeat, Kitana returns to Edenia, only to be confronted by Blaze, who warns her of an even greater conflict ahead. Kitana's reaction, falling to her knees and lamenting the endless cycle of war, reveals her exhaustion and the emotional toll that constant battle has taken on her. Yet, despite her fatigue, Kitana remains a rallying force destined to unite forces for good for the battles to come.
With the Dragon King destroyed, Kitana made her way home to the realm of Edenia. During her journey, she was met by a being made of fire. He informed Kitana that her premonition of a looming conflict was correct, and that she must unite the forces of good for a coming battle to preserve the realms. Disheartened, Kitana fell to her knees. "When will it end?" she cried. "Every victory leads to more conflict and greater adversaries." Blaze simply replied, "If all goes as planned, your enemies will be destroyed."
The last character I'm going to cover is Jax. During the events leading up to Deception, Jax fought alongside Earthrealm's champions against the Deadly Alliance of Shang Tsung and Quan Chi, only to be overwhelmed and eliminated by Tarkatan hordes. His body was later resurrected by Onaga, who used a powerful magic to enslave Jax's mind and force him to serve as a brutal enforcer. This period of mind control is a source of deep shame and regret for Jax. He remembers the violence he committed against those he once swore to protect, and is haunted by the loss of agency and the pain he caused while under Onaga's spell. It's only through the intervention of Liu Kang's spirit and Ermac that Jax's mind is freed, allowing him to reclaim his identity and mission. Jax's determination and raw anger become his greatest assets after regaining his freedom. In his ending, he channeled his fury into a relentless assault on Onaga, ultimately defeating the Dragon King by embedding a Komi-Dogu into his head and ending the conflict. This act is not just a feat of physical strength, but a release of the rage and guilt that had built up within him. The narrative voice reflects on the depth of Jax's anger, suggesting that it was his emotional intensity rather than any mystical power that allowed him to succeed where others had failed. There is a hope that Onaga's defeat, Jax's anger might finally be purged and can begin to heal from the trauma of his ordeal.
The Dragon King had defeated us all, save one, Jax. And though I had absorbed the fighting abilities of those who had aided me, I lacked the raw anger that propelled Jax into battle. Brutally pounding Onaga into submission, Jax finally ended the conflict by embedding a Kami-Dogu in the would-be ruler's head. Where he summoned so much rage from, I cannot say. I only hope that his anger is finally purged.
When it comes to gameplay, Mortal Kombat Deception closely follows the foundation set by Deadly Alliance, but with some key differences. For one, the pacing is noticeably faster. That's both a blessing and a curse. On the plus side, it fixes the somewhat sluggish feel of Deadly Alliance. But on the downside, the fighting engine still isn't quite up to par with the top tier fighters on the market. If you're looking for deep mechanics or tournament-ready experience, this one might not hit the mark. In fact, there are several cheesy, easy-to-execute infinite combos that can break the competitive flow of the game. Mortal Kombat Deception introduced a suite of new features that set it apart from its predecessors and helped modernize the series for a new generation. The game stages became highly interactive, featuring multi-tiered environments, breakable boundaries, and instant death traps, mechanics that added strategic depth and excitement to each fight. However, unlike earlier entries, characters could no longer be slammed against walls, shifting the focus to the new environmental hazards. The introduction of the combo breaker system was widely welcome, allowing players to interrupt combos up to 3 times per match and addressing criticisms of Deadly Alliance uninterruptible, often lengthy combos. This change led to generally shorter, more tactical combo sequences. Character specialization was another hallmark of Deception. While many returning fighters kept their primary fighting styles, several received or reworked secondary styles, and all weapon styles once again included the classic uppercut move, restoring a series staple that had been inconsistently applied in Deadly Alliance. Characters also featured unique throws, finishing poses, and recovery animations, adding personality and a variety to the roster. The Harikiri finisher was introduced, allowing the losing player to perform a character-specific self-deletion move, a mechanic unique to Deception that added dark humor to the end of matches. The backgrounds in Deception are more than just eye candy. They're a major part of the gameplay. This is the game that brought back the iconic stage fatalities from earlier titles, but with a twist. Now they could be triggered at any time during a match. Nearly every stage features some kind of environmental hazard, like a breakable floor or walls. Knock your opponent into one of these, and they're in for a world of hurt. Some hazards simply transport players to different layers of the stage. Yep, Deception introduced multi-tier areas, but most of them are full-on death traps. These are one-hit deletions that instantly end a round if you're unfortunate enough to get tossed into one. We're talking meat grinders, steel presses, and some terrifyingly long falls. And if you find these hazards a bit too game-changing, you could tool them on and off in the options. Adding to the chaos, several stages include weapons lying around that players can pick up and use. The catch, they're often placed dangerously close to the death traps. Risk versus reward at its finest. Arcade mode makes its return, featuring a classic Mortal Kombat ladder. Defeat 7 opponents to reach the final boss, the powerful Dragon King Onaga. The game starts with 12 selectable fighters with another 12 unlockable. It'll take a whole while to see everything the roster has to offer. Each character comes with multiple fighting styles just like Deadly Alliance, both hand-to-hand and weapon-based, along with signature special moves, lengthy combos, and of course, fatalities. Deception also introduced some of the most memorable minigames in the franchise's history. There's Conquest, a narrative-driven mode that expands the MK universe, Chess Combat, a wild reimagining of traditional chess with a fighting twist, and Puzzle Combat, a colorful, over-the-top puzzle game in the style of Super Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo, but with decapitations. Now let's talk about the Conquest mode. Conquest is a third-person adventure mode that serves multiple purposes. It fills in the backstory leading up to Deception, acts as a training ground for various characters, and most importantly, it's the key to unlocking the game's biggest secrets. You play as Shujinko, a new face of the Mortal Kombat universe, and without giving too much away, let's just say his story is wild. Definitely one of the more ambitious narratives in the franchise. As you explore different realms, you'll take on side quests from citizens and interact with classic Mortal Kombat characters, many of whom will train you in their fighting styles. Along the way, you'll collect coins and keys used to unlock coffins in the crypt, the game's massive vault of unlockables. Some of these chests only appear at specific times of the day, and yes, they're built-in night and day cycle, though you can fast forward time by meditating. Even after the main story is finished, additional areas unlock for exploration. Conquest isn't just a tutorial, it's a full-blown RPG elite experience that adds serious replay value to the game. That said, it's not without its flaws. The voice acting, honestly some of the worst you'll hear. Many of the characters sound like they're reading lines off a script for the first time. The constant fetch quest, deliver X item to Y person, start feeling repetitive real fast. And while the environments are large, the character animations can come off stiff and dated. Still, despite these issues, Conquest is still a huge and ambitious mode that adds depth to the game beyond the fighting. Now let's talk about Puzzle Combat. This mode is easy to pick up and hard to put down. The goal is simple. Outlast your opponent as block stack higher and higher, and use your chosen fighter's special moves to turn the tide. It's fast-paced, fun, and great for casual players, even those unfamiliar with Mortal Kombat itself. But let's be honest, Puzzle Combat is heavily inspired by Puzzle Fighter 2 Turbo from Capcom. Even the developers admitted this. It doesn't really bring anything new to the genre. It's a solid and addictive minigame that's still worth diving into. Last but not least, Chess Combat. In this mode, you'll assemble a team from the arcade roster and jump into a chessboard-style battlefield. While some rules of traditional chess apply, like how pieces move and the goal of defeating the opposing king, this is far from your average match of chess. You got spells that can damage, trap, or resurrect fighters, adding a strategic twist. But here's the catch. When two pieces meet, the outcome is settled, not by positioning or tactics, but by a regular Mortal Kombat fight. And while piece status affects your stats in battle, a player who's great at fighting can easily overpower one who's better at strategizing. So it's chess, kind of, but it's still a blast. Where Deception really shines, just like in its name implies, is in its layers. There's so much content packed in here that replayability is off the charts. With over 600 unlockables hidden in the crypt, you'll find yourself coming back again and again and again. And if you really want to get the most out of the experience, skip the strategy guides and game facts for a while. Let yourself be surprised. You could spend weeks exploring everything this game has to offer. Now, of course, this game was the first Mortal Kombat game to feature online play, which gave people a reason to go online. But this was not included on the GameCube port, and we're going to get there real soon. The PlayStation 2 and Xbox ports of Mortal Kombat Deception dropped on October 4th, 2004 for North American markets and November 19th, 2004 for European markets. Interestingly, the French release had a slight twist. The game was renamed as Mortal Kombat Mystification when it launched there on November 5th. According to an official press release from Midway's European division, the name was changed due to translation issues. And honestly, it checks out, because in French, deception translates more closely to disappointment. Probably not the vibe Midway was going for, but it worked. In addition to the standard versions, special editions were also released for both consoles. The PS2 had Mortal Kombat Deception Premium Pack featuring Sub-Zero on the cover. The Xbox had Mortal Kombat Deception Collector's Edition with Scorpion, Baraka, Mileena, or Raiden gracing the cover, depending on the region. Both editions came packed with exclusive content, a bonus DVD containing over 40 minutes of behind-the-scenes footage, including a history of Mortal Kombat featurette and video biographies for all 25 playable characters. They also included a playable arcade-style version of the original Mortal Kombat game, a nostalgic throwback for longtime fans. Rounding things out was a serialized embossed metal collector's card, marking these editions highly sought after by collectors. At their core, the content between the PS2 and Xbox versions was essentially the same. Now, let's talk about the GameCube version of Deception. This port launched in North America on February 28, 2005. Unlike the PS2 and Xbox versions, the GameCube port had some key differences, both technical and strategic. The most notable addition was the inclusion of two exclusive playable characters, Goro and Shao Kahn. Because the GameCube didn't support online play, Midway added these fan-favorite bosses to make up for the missing features and offer GameCube players something unique. There were a few other tweaks as well. The crypt was trimmed down in this version. While the PS2 and Xbox had 12 bonus characters, the GameCube offered only 6. Still, the core experience remained the same, with all major gameplay modes like Conquest, Chess Combat, Puzzle Combat keeping intact. Finally, we have the PSP port, Mortal Kombat Unchained. This version launched in North America on November 13, 2006. Later, it will be released in Australia on November 23, 2006. And last but not least, in Europe on November 24, 2006. At its foundation, Unchained delivers the same 3D fighting experience as Deception, but it brought a few new tricks to the table. First off, Unchained includes everything from the GameCube version, meaning Goro and Shao Kahn are playable, but it goes even further by adding 4 additional characters: Blaze, Frost, Jax, and Katana. This brought the total roster up to 30 fighters, the largest of any Deception release at the time. These extra fighters weren't playable in the original PS2 or Xbox versions, which made them a huge draw for PSP players. The PSP port also introduced Endurance Mode, a survival-style challenge where players face waves of enemies, something not available in the console versions. Plus, thanks to the PSP's wireless ad hoc functionality, players could battle each other in local multiplayer matches, taking Mortal Kombat on the go like never before. Deception was generally well received upon its release, praised for revitalizing the franchise and introducing a wealth of new content and features. Critics and fans alike noted that the game built successfully on the foundation laid by its predecessors. Deadly Alliance offered a faster, more refined fighting system and a broader variety of gameplay modes. The inclusion of multiple fatalities per character, the introduction of the Hara-Kiri mechanic, and the addition of minigames like chess combat and puzzle combat were seen as innovative and entertaining, adding substantial replay value to the package. The game's presentation was also highlighted, with improved graphics, stylish character designs, and detailed backgrounds that stood out for the era. The soundtrack and overall atmosphere were considered fittingly dark and immersive, contributing to the game's appeal for longtime fans of the series. The story, while not groundbreaking, was appreciated for being more cohesive and engaging than typical fighting game narratives, and the expanded Conquest mode was recognized for its ambition, even if some found it tedious and poorly implemented. However, Deception was not without its criticisms. Some reviewers pointed out that the enemy AI could be inconsistent, swinging from overly easy to frustratingly difficult, particularly in later stages of the game. The controls and character animations are occasionally described as stiff or less fluid compared to contemporaries like Virtua Fighter 4 or Soul Calibur 2, and the inclusion detection around environmental hazards could be unpredictable. While the Conquest mode was praised for its scope, it was also criticized for clunky controls and a lack of compelling narrative depth. Among competitive fighting game enthusiasts, Deception was sometimes seen as lacking the depth and balance required for high-level play. But for casual players and series fans, it was celebrated as one of the most content-rich and entertaining entries in the Mortal Kombat franchise. The online multiplayer feature, a first for the series, was a significant step forward and contributed to the game's positive reception. Based on the average gamer, Mortal Kombat Deception was largely well received, particularly those who approached it as casual fans of the series or the fighting game genre. The consensus highlights the game's ambitious scope, with reviewers praising the inclusion of multiple play modes such as puzzle combat, chess combat, and an expanded Conquest mode, which proved a variety of experiences beyond the standard fighting gameplay. This surplus of content was seen as a major strength, offering significant replay value and keeping players engaged with unlockables and secrets. The graphics and audio received high marks, with smooth visuals, detailed backgrounds, and a memorable soundtrack contributing to the game's appeal. Many reviewers noted that the environments and stage hazards, especially the return of stage fatalities, added excitement and a unique flavor to matches. The overall presentation was considered strong, even if the Conquest mode visuals and voice acting were sometimes criticized as lackluster or unpolished. However, the core fighting engine was consistently viewed as the game's main weakness. While the gameplay was faster and more responsive than its predecessor, it was still described as rudimentary and lacking the depth or balance found in other contemporary fighting games. Infinite combos and shallow combat system meant that dedicated fighting game enthusiasts might find it less satisfying. But for most casual players, this was not a deal breaker. The story was seen as serviceable, but not a primary draw, with Conquest mode's narrative elements proving some intrigue despite repetitive tasks and weak voice acting. Ultimately, the game's replayability, variety, and fun factor outweighed its shortcomings for the average gamer. The reviews suggest that while Deception may not have been a tournament-level fighter, it succeeded in delivering an entertaining and content-rich package that resonated with its target audience. In summary, Mortal Kombat Deception is remembered as a high point in the 3D era of the series, an ambitious and enjoyable sequel that took risks, introduced memorable features, and largely succeeded at reinvigorating Mortal Kombat for a new generation of players. I'm gonna be honest, Deception was new to me, and walking into it, I went in with wide eyes. I had certain expectations, and I can confidently say that when it comes to Mortal Kombat, those expectations were met. This game feels like Mortal Kombat featuring a side quest, and it pulls that off very well. I've got strong feelings about the Conquest mode. I could spend hours, literal hours, just wandering through it. Every time I snagged another Kamidogu, I was hyped to see what the next realm had to offer. Whether it was a Netherrealm, Edenia, or Outworld, each place had intense levels of detail. Some small and some larger than life. Like in Earthrealm, just seeing Lin Kuei warriors patrolling and being able to punch one only to get decked back, totally worth it. Even characters weren't playable in the original PS2 and Xbox versions made surprise appearances. Seeing Shinnok, Johnny Cage show up, it was a small thing, but man, it hit big. Now, while the Conquest mode was the highlight for me, the gameplay itself was another win. The combat felt tighter, the combos were easier to pull off, and my thumbs thanked me for it. The Harakiri mechanic caught me off guard at first. I legit thought I did something wrong, but then I realized it was just a cool way to cap off a fighter after dominating your opponent. And you know what else I appreciated? The return of unplayable bosses. That was a classic Mortal Kombat move. In the past, you could play as Shinnok in MK4 or Quan Chi and Shang Tsung in Deadly Alliance, but here, Onaga was off limits. It gave him this intimidating presence that we hadn't seen in many years. And honestly, that decision gave him the mystique a final boss should have. Then there's the minigames. Puzzle combat? Addictive. And I'm a sucker for Tetris. I play it just to clear my head, so this was right up my alley. And chess combat? That hit even harder. I've been playing chess since I was 8, so seeing it combined with MK's elements was just chef's kiss. Another thing I gotta shout out is the replayability. The crypt system, once again, was top tier. This time around, you had to play Conquest mode to unlock the keys for the crypt. And yeah, the game kind of forces you into it, but it's worth it. The music, the atmosphere, the overall vibe, this game delivered on so many fronts. So, would I recommend Deception to others? You bet your favorite fatality I would. After the dark ages of Mortal Kombat, Deception brought new life to the franchise and made good on when Deadly Alliance started. Like I said earlier, this game caught lightning in a bottle. If you made it to the end of this video, drop a like, it really helps out. I was pushing through a pretty nasty head cold to get this one done. Gotta love allergy season, right? But no worries, we're keeping the content rolling. Next week, we're back jumping into the Rockstar Takeover with a video on Manhunt. And the week after that, we're back on a Mortal Kombat Takeover with Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks. If that sounds like your kind of vibe, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. With that said, this is the Retro Phantom, signing out.